ass meets bench, bench retains ass. Ass transmits signal to brain, brain transmits signal to body, body gets ass off bench and plays better.
If it amazes you, then you don't know anything about basketball. You're illuminating your relative lack of knowledge of the game with a statement like that. In my entire adult life, I've never used the expression game face. I've no idea what it means.
When my time on earth is gone and my activities here are past, I want they bury me upside down and my critics can kiss my...
The Ride with JMV, 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, welcome in to this very special show we're going to do today. We're going to have some of what we normally do. There's no question about that, because it is a Larceny Bourbon Locks and Lunazul Tequila Shots Thursday, Week 9 NFL. Brent Holverson is standing by. Tommy S. is here with us at Coach's Tavern downtown. We would love to see you down here. But this is also going to be a show of great reflection for the passing of Bob Knight at the age of 83. The news broke from the family probably around 7 or so, maybe 6:30 or so yesterday early evening. And I know that some of you are saying, hey, we've heard this before. Some of you are saying, hey, everybody is talking about this, but I'm sorry to tell you, this is incredibly meaningful, and as meaningful as most things you guys will go through, because what we saw in Bob Knight here, we will never, ever see again. We will never see again somebody of that magnitude. And that's not hyperbole. That is the absolute truth. And what I'm going to do for you today is I'm going to give you the fan side of it. I'm going to give you the you side of it, because that's how I grew up. That's how I was. Now, I took over this gig, and you become, a little bit more, how should I put it, skeptical about things, right? I mean, you kind of lose a little bit of fandom when you start doing this, because you got to try to keep this as fair and balanced as possible. But the early stages of my life, when I first remember being a sports fan, when I first remember, and you know me with my love of basketball, when I first remember my love of basketball, I'm 5 years old. 5 years old, we're on the way to Florida. This is actually a memory I have with my dad, which are few and far between, but we're on the road to Florida for spring break, and it's IU and Kentucky in the Scott May broken arm game. That's my first real memory. And then, when you're 5 and then you get into 6, you start retaining a lot of what you enjoy. Up until that time, everything is kind of full with toys and adulation, because you're a kid, you're a toddler, and, food and all this stuff. But that's the first time that I really did get a chance to soak up my love of sports. And it did start with Bob Knight. And again, I'll tell you, I'm going to give you what I believe to be, for the most of all, the opinion of you out there. If you're a member of Generation X like me, and you're from the state of Indiana, especially from where I'm from, I'm 25 minutes southwest of Bloomington. So you can imagine how that hit. There has been nothing in the history of this state that has been larger than that. And there will be nothing in the future that will be larger. And I'll even bring up Peyton Manning. And there are no doubt Peyton Manning's magnitude goes without question. But compared to that of Bob Knight during that era, mid-70s through the 80s, when I was in elementary, junior high, and high school, and in college, there was nothing larger. And I can honestly tell you this leaves a significant hole in history. And I talk about this all the time, considering how I grew up and how I love to test myself often. You say, well, you have a great memory on things that took place. And there's a reason why. Because I love remembering the things that I enjoyed as a kid, I enjoyed as a junior high or a high schooler. Those are vivid, enjoyable memories. And so many of those memories were so significantly built around watching IU basketball games, or watching what Bob Knight does, or making sure you're in front of the television when Channel 4 is on for the Bob Knight talk show at noon on a Sunday morning. It was an absolute religion. So if you're out there right now suggesting, well, there's a lot into this, you can talk about other stuff too, we will, but this has such a level of significance and magnitude and an effect on so many that I completely understand if you're a member of the younger generation and you don't quite get it. Now, some just say I'm not an IU fan in general, and that's okay. But again, I'm going to give you all angles today. I'm going to give you the angle from me, the growing into it fan as a youngster, going through it again through high school. I'm going to give you that angle of it. I'm going to give you those that have been around him, those that have carved out a career with him, because of him. I'm going to give you a variety of stories today over the course of this show, along with what we also do on a daily basis on a Thursday. I'm going to give you this throughout the course of the afternoon, so I want to remind you, like I always do, don't go anywhere. Do not go anywhere. If you're listening, hang in there. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Inside the lounge via YouTube Live. The Win Schuler's Spreadable Cheeses Lounge via YouTube Live. The stream, the app, and HD Radio. Bring everybody, because if you're like me, or let's just say, for example, you want to be educated like this, you really don't know, you're an IU fan, but you're too young to know, this is where you find out. This is where you find out the significance and why this is so meaningful. And to start out, via the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, he is a friend of the show. I often talk about how he has also been a huge part of my bed rest, meaning he has cured my snoring with Aurora Specialty Sleep Clinic. He is a former Big Ten Player of the Year. He's a former NBA player, the pride of Terre Haute South High School, and a 90s Hoosier. The sweet shooting left-hander Brian Evans joins us. Hello, Brian. How you doing?
John, that was the best, most powerful opening I've ever heard. Dude, I grew up just like you. That was awesome.
And this is what I want to gather, because unlike me, who was a big wimp and sucked, and there's no way in the world I could have done what you did. I would have loved to have done it. I want to get the angle from you, because you and I were the same growing up, and a lot of other people were the same as us growing up. But what made this overall experience of being a part of that program and being coached up by, if not the best, certainly one of the all-time greats of coaching on any level, what made it so significant for you?
Oh, man, it's such a – let me start by saying I was asked to by the university to, produce a quote – not say a quote, a statement, right, about his passing. And it could be as long as I want it to be. They want to put it on the Jumbotron tomorrow night, and I am freaking struggling to do it. Struggling. Because the significance is just so great, Your question is so heavy to me because he was huge, just larger than life, so important to my whole life, really. I mean, I got to live out my dream because of the dude. It was the best. I mean, just being coached by him, the focus, the determination, the enthusiasm, the effort that he put into it was unbelievable. You just can't believe it. He outworked everybody every day, trying to make his team win, trying to get every ounce out of every guy on the roster. I was blown away. I was like, when I first got there, I was like, holy shit, this is, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. This guy is no joke. And the intensity was real. And he was so focused. He just gave every ounce he had. So cool.
And this is what I think about, because I can never be in the shoes that you were in, or the former players or those that worked around him, or even with what I do, those that covered him for so many years. And I'm going to talk to Mark Patrick a little bit later on. I mean, Mark so many different times, had one-on-one exclusive interviews with him. And I can't speak from any of those standpoints, but what I gather from just being around it, from being a basketball fan, from being a fan, and then growing older and maturing, is that it wasn't always rose-colored glasses. It wasn't always great. I think it was such a life experience from 0 to 60, it sounds like to me, for somebody like you in that program on a daily basis. I mean, some days it may be good and you're going, wow, this is great. I'm so glad this was my choice. And other days when you're thinking, man, I'd love to double back to Terre Haute and go someplace else lickety right now. Man, and what occurs to me always is the good and the bad and everything. Always, to me, it always is relation to life in general. Because that's our lives, man. I'm 53, going to be 54 years old, and I've experienced nearly everything right now. And you, over a 4-year period, experienced that again from start to finish in a basketball program. So that's really the only way I think I can make anything relatable to what I've gone through compared to what you and others like you inside that basketball program, Brian, have gone through.
Man, I got to tell you this though. Like I wasn't like everybody else. And I mean that. Like I was really lucky in that I was a huge fan. I said this at my Hall of Fame speech. I got inducted to the IU Athletics Hall of Fame, which was such a amazing thing to me. And I finished by saying I'm by far the biggest Indiana fan that ever got to wear the candy stripes. I am. There's no question. And so I got to tell you, when I was there, as tough as it was, and believe me, it was not designed to be easy. I mean, that's not what he was doing. He was not trying to be your dad on campus and come to me with your problems. It was, this dude was trying to win and make us graduate. That's it. Period. End of story. But I got to tell you, I really never had those feelings of, man, I got to get out of here. Now, he used to threaten to, send me back to Terre Haute on a Greyhound bus, a lot. But I never wanted to leave. I had so much fun playing there. I was improving. I knew I was getting better. I was getting better because of him. He was on my ass constantly. He never took a day off from coaching me, which was awesome. I, didn't always love it every day when I was there, thinking, this guy will not leave me alone, but it was working, and I knew it. But I will tell you this: I had such a great experience. He was tough to deal with, but I'm telling you, my first probably 3 years. So I was there 5 years, not 4. You can't cheat me out of that redshirt year, because when you serve 5 years under him, you're not going to. It was 4.
Yeah.
I got a funny Michael Jordan story about that. I'll tell you some other time. But I got to tell you, the first 3 years of being there, when he'd come, nose to nose with me and just really laying into me, for 3 years, I couldn't help but think, oh my God, Bobby Knight knows who I am. That's honestly what I thought. I was like, holy shit, Bob Knight knows who I am. And so that got me through 3 years. Now, the last 2 years, I was kind of like, okay, I've had enough. They got to get this guy out of my face. But honestly, that's how great it was. I was just such a huge diehard fan. The chips fell in, just somehow for me to get there. And I wasn't a big recruit. If it was like it is today, I was probably a 1-star recruit. I didn't have a bunch of offers. They weren't from big schools. My dream school was just, IU, 100%. Never thought I was going to get recruited by him. And somehow chips fell in place, and there I was. I wasn't gonna do anything except try to help him help me. That's what I did. And so we had a lot of guys that were disgruntled when he'd get on them. They'd, curl up in a ball. We had guys, tons of transfers that just weren't cut out to be there. I just loved it. I loved it.
It's Brian Evans, who was also the Big Ten Player of the Year. When you look back on it, and we talked about this before, in the NBA, you were coached by John Calipari with the Nets. I mean, you've had different coaches, different coaching styles, different relationships with coaches. I'm assuming some good, probably some bad as well. What was the difference between that and what you got in Bloomington between other aspects of how you were coached up?
Oh man, listen, there's only one of him. One. I mean, that is just a basketball genius, period. There's nobody close. I'm positive. Like, I played for Chuck Daly. Chuck Daly was chosen to coach the 92 Dream Team, the best team ever assembled. They put Chuck Daly in charge, so no slouch, right? And he comes out of retirement to coach the Orlando Magic my second year. And I'm just telling you, at timeouts, I'm not in the game, and I'm watching like he's drawing up a play, or he's having his assistant drop a play. And Chuck was a great relationship guy. You know, he was picked to coach that dream team because he knew how to manage big egos, right? I was blown away at these timeouts going, what are we doing? Like, coach would get us a layup right now. This is stupid. What is he doing? I was always just unimpressed with what I saw in a huddle from every day after I left Bloomington till I stopped playing. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I played for Calipari with the Nets. Same thing. No one's even in the stratosphere with this dude. It was ridiculous. I saw him. You just think about it. 5 years, a lot of games. This guy never diagrammed the same play. Like, I was thinking, I paid it close attention. And so we're in a timeout, late game situation. He gets us a layup, you know, and he draws it up. And I swear on my life, he's doing it he's freestyling. He's freestyling plays. We get a layup. And then, you know, the next season, same scenario. And I'm going, I wonder if he's going to drop that same play. I remember the play, right? I had a decent memory when it came to that stuff. I'd be like, I bet we're going to do this. And I never saw the same play, ever. Never.
So Brian Evans, you joined.
Offense. The thing about this, we ran motion offense, which is just like patterns and just, it's like you decide. I mean, he empowered us to run an offense that had no pattern because he believed sneak attack. I think it goes to his military days. Like, they're not going to know what we're doing if we're not calling, you know, 3 side or 4 up. Like, if we're not going to call a play, they're not going to know what we're doing. So he let us do that every possession of every game, is not calling plays from the sideline. But in a late game scenario, ball out of bounds under the basket or on the side, the dude had 15,000 plays, a Rolodex, and they were all money. Crazy.
So, Brian Evans with us. The one thing I mentioned before you came on, too, before I cut you loose, is that, and I know a lot of people, especially the younger generation, don't really get it. And I understand that's why we're here to help tell them and educate. And listen, you know, not everything, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, was rosy, but we're here to help educate them. But also, I think, like us, if you're in your age bracket, if you're a little bit younger than us, maybe a little bit older than us, you understood the impact that he had before you stepped foot on campus in Bloomington, before I was even in high school, and you know how bigger than life he was. You know how a religion it became, and you also understand in a world in which our attention span is about the size of a gnat, there will never, ever be anybody in this state as big as life, as big as Bob Knight. That will never, ever happen again.
I'm not going to disagree with you one bit. I mean, not even close. He is the state of Indiana. The only person that's maybe you said Peyton. I heard that.
Yeah.
You know, I would say is Larry Bird in that conversation. Yep. But he's so associated with Boston because how great he was in Boston, and my favorite player of all time. But for me, for sure, how do we get to these younger fans that root for IU? They really don't know, and there's no way they could. But it was such an awesome, you know, it was just an awesome era to grow up in. Where I swear I cannot believe that I got to play there.
All right. So before I let you go here, did you find a quote in the last 10 minutes that can suit the folks at IU for the montage tomorrow?
No, man, I'm going to have to go work on this. I think I'm going to have to probably set up shop with a couple of drinks and and figure that out later. It's going to take me some time. You know why? Partly because I want it to be perfect.
Yeah. Hey, man, it's not going to be, though, and that's what I was talking about. That's life, and it's not going to be perfect. I mean, you had incredibly great times. You had some low times, and, you know, I thought more so than not, never playing there, never being a part of the program, never really, other than the end, reporting on it. I always felt that was kind of a perfect description of that era and what he ripped. I mean, it was life. That's what it was. It was really good, sometimes bad, and that was life.
I was never that down. I mean, think about it. It was my dream, right? I dreamed about it. I got to do it because of him. I was never sad about it. Like, he tore into me probably worse than anybody during the years I was there. And I just thought, man, I'm getting this time. This guy, he's giving me everything, and he's helping me get better. I never had a bad attitude about it. I'm not trying to be a hot shot. I was like, well, am I going to call home and cry to my mom? I was dreaming about this. I got to do it. I just had a blast.
All right, here's what you have to do. Is that a video tomorrow that you're going to be a part of, quote-wise, for the montage?
No, I'm just sending in basically a text of just my thoughts.
Because I was thinking if it's a video, you got to put on that shoulder harness. I know you still have that. You got to put that on.
Oh, man, none of my clothes fit from back then. Stop it.
Dude, I appreciate you. There are just some things, and I understand this, and that's a part of doing this job and doing it for such a long time. I understand there are some things that are just going to be better and more educational for folks out there coming from people that actually went through it. And I know that it's a tough day for all of you that played for him with the news setting in. But I thank you very much for coming on here and being a fantastic lead to this day. Thank you very much.
Oh, dude, thank you. You could hear the emotion in my voice because it is.
Yeah.
It's heavy.
Yeah, I can tell. And we'll check up down the road and talk some hoops further down the road. Appreciate you, Brian.
Great job today, man. Fantastic.
It's Brian Evans right there, the former Big Ten Conference Player of the Year. And as he mentioned, he was self-made there. I mean, there was not a lot of thought that he was ever going to accomplish what he ultimately accomplished in a game of basketball. And if you watched IU basketball, he was one of those examples. Like I've heard everybody talking about today regarding Bob Knight and his coaching time. He only had one NBA All-Star. He never, did this or never did that. What he did was he helped create players like that. I mean, players like that played well with others, and started with execution and attention to detail, unlike anybody else. Those are all kind of buzzwords that I heard growing up. We all heard growing up. I mean, if you grew up in this state and you're my age, near my age, we all ran the same stuff. Unless you went to Lagodi and you held the ball for the entire game, which was successful for Jack Butcher, but we all ran the same stuff. We all ran the motion offense, and we all played man-to-man, never played zone, and everybody had to climb over every screen. You weren't allowed to switch. I mean, let me see a show of hands here. I mean, when you played basketball growing up in that era, we all played the same way. It was amazing, and it is something that we will never see again. And as I mentioned to Brian, and this is just from my standpoint, I view it as life because I've received a lot of this so far today. I've received, obviously people saying, yeah, this is what it meant, and you're exactly right. And then others saying, well, there was so much bad in this. And there was some bad. There was some negative. There's no question about that. And that's why I tell you that what that rep to me was life. I mean, it really was life. It was the life experience. Just those that I'm going to have be a part of this show today actually lived that on the inside. I mean, I just got the outside view. I met the guy one time. I've got a couple of stories to tell. I met the guy one time. And I always tell the story of me wrecking my Porsche 914 back in February of 1986 and about killing me and the guy that was riding with me. And, the day after that happened, there was a signed note from him in my hospital room in Bloomington. But it especially hits for me because that's how I grew up. And a lot of you have grown up the same way. And especially if it's somebody that's from, somebody like Alabama that grew up in the fashion in which they did and their love for football, that's a good comparison. But I know a lot of you out there know exactly what I'm talking about. I just want to make sure that we cover everything today because we've got younger generation that love to hear the accomplishments, love to hear about the era, but don't really have a firm grasp on everything. And that's why I have a lot of people from the inside talking about that today. Also, our Larceny Bourbon Locks and Lunazul Tequila Shots. We're live at Coach's Tavern downtown. We would love to see you today. We'll bring in Brent Holverson, who is our betting analyst, who also grew up in Jackson County. Grew up in Seymour, Indiana, and I'm assuming, just like I did, we're kind of in the similar age bracket here. Grew up a huge fan of Bob Knight, and obviously was bigger in life with Knight and that basketball program for you.
Oh, absolutely, John. I mean, such a somber day. A guy larger than life, like Brian even said. Not only was a heck of a coach, but he was teaching young men how to become men too in the process. So outside of playing basketball, I never had the pleasure to play for the Hoosiers, but I did go to 3 or 4 Bob Knight basketball camps back in the 80s.
Yes.
So
and that's something else we'll have to mention. I mean, everybody, but I'll tell you all the time, like I say, oh, yeah, I'm tough. I was the biggest. I wouldn't have lasted 5 seconds in that basketball program.
No.
He'd have yelled at me, and I'd have cried like a little baby. Oh! I mean, I understand the limitations now. Would I have loved to do it? Yeah. But I'd have cried in 5 seconds and left. I didn't even go to the basketball camp, but everybody but me did. It was just a rite of passage when we grew up.
It really was.
It will never be like that again.
It won't. It won't. And, one of my fondest memories, John, I mean, that 1987 Key Smart last-second shot to win the national championship, I remember we were in the leadoff basement. I mean, just I remember everything about it. It was the way of life, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Southern Indiana, all of Indiana, all around. Bob Knight brought a program to the light, and I think it's there's going to be big shoes to fill. There has been since he's left, but
they haven't. Yeah, they haven't yet. They're still trying.
They haven't yet.
So,
and you got Mike Woodson out there. He's got a piece of it too. So I really think. I mean, again, like you said, he brought a coaching style that we don't see like it anymore. You can't do that anymore, right? But what he did is he created not only great basketball players, but great young men getting ready to go out in the world.
What's up, Brent Holverson right there? I just also want to explain to you the profound effect that he had on me, that had on me growing up. I mean, my grandparents were huge fans. They watched every Bob Knight show, every Bob Knight talk show, watched every game. And if you grew up in the area in which I did, around the same time frame in which I did, there was just no way around it. That's just what you were. And a lot of my great memories are coinciding with those games. Brent was talking about games. I can go back. I mentioned I brought up the 75 game, going down to Florida in a 75 Oldsmobile Cutlass to go to spring break. And then that's when my sports love really did take off, whether it was watching, IU basketball, Bob Knight, or then the Reds, or, my love with Walter Payton, the football player. These are just some incredible times that created magical moments. Obviously also had some tough situations. But as I mentioned at the start of the show and how I tried to piece this together, man, it was life. And that's what Bob Knight was. For many of us, if not close to all of us around here, it was a part of our fabric of life. And we won't see anything like that ever again. We truly won't. Quick break and we shall return. Brent comes back with us as well. The head coach of Florida Atlantic, once upon a time, was a Bob Knight manager. Dusty May is going to join us coming up here before the top of the 4 o'clock hour. We'll do our Larceny Bourbon Locks and Lunazul Tequila shots coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. Me, Brent, and Tommy S. here at Coach's Tavern. Kevin Harlan's going to join us from CBS and TNT at 4:30. The legendary Broadcasting Hall of Famer Mark Patrick will join me at 5 today to talk about this and the myriad of times in which he interviewed Bob Knight. Bob Knight liked Mark a great deal, and Mark's going to tell us all about that and more coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. Some great shared stories from the Broadcasting Hall of Famer Mark Patrick at 5 today. The player personnel director and scouting guy and friend of the show, Ryan Carr, was also once upon a time a Bob Knight manager. He went to IU solely to be that and has a tremendous story that some of you may not know. Ryan's going to join me at 5:30 today. So be ready for that. Otherwise, inside the lounge via YouTube Live, the Wynn Schuler Spreadable Cheeses Lounge. Coach's Tavern is our location. Larceny Bourbon Locks, Lunazul Tequila shots. We would love to share a cocktail with you and some stories as well on this Thursday. Again, inside the lounge via YouTube Live, the stream, the app, HD radio, and just getting started on this Thursday, 93.5 and 105.
93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The Ride with JMV, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Hey, welcome back, Coach's Tavern. We're downtown today. Our normal Larceny Bourbon Locks and Lunazul Tequila shots. Brent Holverson, betting analyst, me, JMV. Thank you for joining us. Deb's the on-site engineer. It is James back at the studio. And a shout-out to Brian Evans, the former Big Ten Player of the Year, the former NBAer. 5 years. I only gave him credit for 4. 5 years in Bloomington. And one of those incredible stories about the reason why he went to IU and how he worked to see those dreams come true in a fantastic way to lead regarding the passing of Bob Knight last night at the age of 83. And I know you've heard a lot of that today. You heard a lot of that at the midday show, certainly a lot in the morning show. I feel like in this case, I will cover this from a different angle because I lived it. And I'm like most of you out there, maybe not all of you, and I understand that if it's not all of you, that's why we're here to try to make sure you fully understand the magnitude of a day like today. But we lived it. We lived it together. And it was profound. And it wasn't without its issues. Hey, I remember back when I was growing up, there were like 3 or 4 or 5 or 9 or 20 or 30 different times when I'm going, well, you just don't understand. To people that were ripping on him, yeah, you just don't understand. And they probably had a pretty firm grasp of understanding, but that was me. You know who didn't understand? It was me. That's who didn't understand. I didn't understand because I was a fan. I didn't understand because I was a fan. Because, again, that's the first thing that I understood about sports. You know, we were talking about that a little bit earlier about some of those benchmarks. I always talk about those situations in sports in which you vividly remember where you were. And it's not a fair fight with me because my memory is pretty incredible unless it happened like an hour and a half ago. Then I can't remember squat. But if it happened in 1975, I could probably tell you, especially if it involved, IU or Bob Knight or a game. And that's where it all began. Now, in 1976, the unbeaten Hoosier team, nobody's been unbeaten in a season since that championship team, the Spectrum in Philadelphia against Michigan. And it's funny, you're just thinking how that game was just so spectacular, but really the first half was ugly to watch from an IU standpoint. I think they ended up down 6 at the half in that game. It was ugly. It was bad. Then they end up winning. Then in 1981, they go back to the Spectrum, and on that evening, John Hinckley Jr., with an assassination attempt on the President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, didn't know if it was going to happen. The game, that is. I can remember being a whiny 11-year-old going, why is it not going to happen? Seriously. I mean, stuff I'd think about today, look in the mirror and go, wow, you said that? That was you? But yeah, it was. It absolutely was me back then. During that run, I remember going to Assembly Hall and watching. That was back then when you had a school in their own arena or gymnasium actually host a regional semifinal and final, which is amazing. I sat there and watched them win the semifinal and the final of the regional back in 1981. And obviously 87, I'm 17 years old, so things are much more recognizable, but there are always these stops along the way. And don't let me forget to tell you about 1976 and the signing of basketballs. I think I've maybe told this one time on the air, but I have told this to Quinn Buckner, which is outstanding. The other part about this that I always thought about regarding IU basketball and Bob Knight was it always brings back incredible memories of two people I miss incredibly, and I have for a long time, and that's my grandparents. Two people, in fact, that helped raise me. When the father's not around, grandparents step up. I spent so much time, not too far from where I grew up, obviously in Owensburg, but I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. And I lost my grandfather in 1993. I lost my grandmother in 2003. And nothing has been able since that point in time to fill that gap. And part of the whole growth and the times I remember that were great would be watching IU and Bob Knight coach and watching them talk about Bob Knight. Or they called him Bobby Knight. So there are many different ways this can have, again, a profound effect on you. And stuff like that is one of them. Brent Holverson is going to rejoin us coming up on the other side. We've got our Larceny Bourbon Locks, Lunazul Tequila shots coming up, Brent, at the top of the hour, right?
We do. Hey, it's a wild week of crazy games out there. We got a lot to talk about with some traveling quarterbacks, if you will, and some really odd lines. So we'll get to that.
Really weird stuff, and coming off of 2 weeks in which I've been dreadful. I talked a bunch of junk, and I've been dreadful since. I have not backed it up.
Hey, this is where you turn it around, John. That's why it's a new week. It's a new fresh slate, and we'll go through it, and we'll dissect it.
Yeah, I've watched my man eat some cottage cheese right here, too. So if you're inside the lounge via YouTube Live, you're fired up about that. Other side, Dusty May, the head coach of Florida Atlantic, a Final Four run a year ago, and he is a former manager for Bob Knight at IU. And obviously, he and I went to Eastern Green. So Dusty May, the head coach of Florida Atlantic, the head coach of the Owls. Dusty's going to join us coming up next. Mark Patrick, Ryan Carr, Kevin Harlan, our Larceny Bourbon Locks and Lunazul Tequila shots. Do not miss a minute of this Thursday show and a lot of reflection as Bob Knight passes away at the age of 83. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
To beat back winter weather, you got to plan and prepare to win.
Malnati's Monday night in Broad Ripple. Be there.
The Ride with JMV, 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Coach's Tavern downtown, Larceny Bourbon Locks, Lunazul Tequila Shots. We got our Week 9 selections coming up top of the hour. Brian Evans a little bit earlier. Mark Patrick's going to join at 5 o'clock. Ryan Carr from the Pacers will be here at 5:30. Kevin Harlan of CBS at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. Again, inside the lounge via YouTube Live, the Win Schuler Spreadable Cheeses Lounge. You guys can add some memories in there if you want to as well. We'd love to have you down here, coaches, if you have time. On the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, an incredible season a year ago for his Florida Atlantic Owls, all the way to the Final Four. Equally as incredible as a history as he has in Greene County, Indiana, at Eastern Greene. Longtime friend of mine, the head coach of the Owls, it's Dusty May. How you doing, buddy?
Good, John. How about you?
Good. You know, it is, people had asked me about, doing this type of show regarding Bob Knight. So that's really going to be hard. The thing that I found difficult about it is I have so many emotions because of the times and the moments that, and I was with family and friends that I miss so severely from the past. I mean, it was just such an experience. I mean, it does draw up a lot of emotions. I didn't play for the guy. I wasn't about to play for the guy. I couldn't last. He didn't know me, Dusty. I'd have lasted about 2 seconds. He made me cry. I'd have gone home. That'd have been it.
And he likes shooters. He loves shooters. So you might have a chance.
Once I got on the other end, it was going to be very problematic, Dusty, as we all know. But no, seriously, it just brings up so many incredible memories. And somebody like you that started your truck to where you are today as a manager within his program, this has to be, an incredibly profound day, moment, what have you as well.
Yeah, John, I mean, I'm well aware that I don't want to say I would have 0% chance of being a college coach if it wasn't for Coach Knight, but I would say it's probably 0.00001% chance of being where I am now if it wasn't simply for the experience of working for him, learning from the program, but also just the credibility that you attach his name to anything and you naturally assume that the person works hard, they're competent, they're passionate about the game, those types of things. So, it's the last 24 hours have been, I don't want to say a celebration of his life, but I mean, it's just brought so many people together and you share experiences, but man, it's amazing how much we all learn from that guy.
So Dusty May, the head coach of Florida Atlantic, is with us. I know that you're an incredibly smart dude and you probably keep lists and stuff. What's at the top of your list of stuff that, I'm glad I went through that because that's something I can take into what I do within my own program today?
It's the day-to-day routine and approach that he worked where every detail is important. Nothing is overlooked. You build it year by year. You don't ever skip steps. But the thing that I think I appreciate more now than ever is he knew what he wanted the game to look like, to feel like, and he had strong conviction that was the right way to do it. And I think millions of us agree that the way he saw the game is the way it should be played, with selflessness, with intensity, with physicality, with great teamwork, and then also factoring in like some creative strategy. He was very creative, strategic, strategically on both sides of the ball. So, man, I could go on and on about what all I learned from just being such a small piece of that program.
So, Dusty May, the head coach of Florida Atlantic, is with us via the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. How was your time as a manager when he was the coach there?
I absolutely loved it. I mean, as you know, John, we grew up idolizing Indiana basketball. I mean, it really is a religion to us, especially in Southern Indiana. So just to be a part of it, and at the time, we had, I guess, the last 4 years, there had been a little bit of a slide where we weren't playing in Sweet 16. We were in the tournament every year and whatnot, but just for his standards that he'd created, we weren't living up to expectations. So it got a little bit rocky, but I think that's probably when us young guys learn the most. If it's all smooth sailing, you probably don't learn from the experiences. So there was a lot of transition and turmoil those last 4 years. Because the world was changing as well. I mean, as we see with media and certain events, the world just changes at times. And things were a lot different there. But man, am I grateful for my experience.
I think about this all the time. I don't know. Of course, you played for Mark Barnheiser. I did not, although I hung around with him. And you ran flex all the time. I don't know if we ever ran anything that IU didn't run. Seriously, when I was growing up there, from the time I started playing basketball, and nobody ever played a zone, and you always got over your screens. I mean, it was always man-to-man. That's just kind of how it was.
Yeah, I don't know if there's ever been a state that fully embraced a style of play. And you know, I hate to bring in this school up north, but I mean, even they played in a similar style. So when you grew up in Indiana, if you knew what zone was, then you probably had just relocated to the state. Because if you grew up there, you had no idea. You had no purpose for zone. So yeah. Can you imagine? You might get fired if you. Hey, we're going to go out and run a zone. Okay, well, you probably aren't going to last very long. Then. Oh man, but I mean, even we ran motion. I think in elementary school, or at least tried to. And then when Barnheiser taught the flex, it teaches you how to read screens and slow down, and it kind of gives you some framework to eventually transition into the motion offense, which now is kind of something that's gone by the wayside with the dribble drive and ball screen offenses. But everything. And I've told several people this. They don't believe me down here that. We didn't release our basketball season schedule because there couldn't ever be a conflict with an IU game. Yeah. I said our calendars looked like this. You had Christmas, you had Thanksgiving, you had Easter Sunday, and then you had IU basketball games, and then maybe a couple birthdays. So our lives revolved around IU and what Coach created.
So Dusty Mays, the head coach of Florida Atlantic, he's with us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Did you have any dialogue with him? I don't know if we've ever talked about this. When was the last time that you did, I guess, would be better suited to ask.
It had been years, to be honest, since he moved to Texas Tech. It was different. And then I came back and worked for Coach Davis. And so there was that divide for a while with all the Indiana people, just as the transition was happening. So the last couple of years, I think with Coach moving back to Bloomington, it's just been great because all the Coach Knight people were so influential in building that thing. So it's been cool to see everybody come together again to celebrate his life.
Yeah, you look back on February of 2020. That was right before the COVID shutdown, and you had IU and Purdue. You had that in Bloomington, and then he came back at halftime onto the floor. I often wonder, and who really knows? I don't know how much of an effect it had on him, but it had a lot of healing power. It was something that fan base certainly got a lot out of and really needed to see at that time.
Yeah. Obviously, the fan base has went through a lot over the years, but at the end of the day, Indiana basketball is special. It has a different level of energy and vibe to it, and like I said, he didn't start it, but he has a big fingerprint on all of it.
No doubt about that. It's Dusty May. How are things going down there in West Palm?
Yeah, really good. We're excited to play. We're actually going to be up in the Midwest next week for the Barstool Classic at Wintrust Arena in Chicago, playing Loyola in a doubleheader. So we're excited to see where we are. I feel like our guys have tried to, I guess, assume that we were going to pick up where we left off in April. And we haven't played as well in our scrimmages, and the practices have been up and down a little bit. But we're excited just to go out and bang against somebody different.
That means Coach May's been getting into some ass. Is what that means right there, haven't you?
Nah, our guys are they're self-starters. They're motivated, and yeah, I mean, we try to keep it real with them. But some of the things you just got to experience, and what we're going to face this year is all uncharted waters for all of us. Where we're going to get every team's best shot. It's going to take crazy emotional energy just to keep up. But we'll have to be more disciplined than we were last year, and we'll have to be even more motivated.
I guess I look at it this way. Knowing what you don't know when you're going through it as quickly as you did in that tournament, I think it's one thing that you can get around. But knowing what you don't know for an extended period of time like that after coming off a great NCAA tournament, that probably is much more difficult, I would guess, Dusty, to deal with.
It's obviously it's a good problem. Anytime you have a lot of older players back that are established and have proven they can do it, you would certainly take that over any other issues. But everything's changed now. Our schedule is crazy difficult in a good way. We've tried to put ourselves on the biggest stage every single game if we possibly could have. We're moving up in the conferences in the American Athletic Conference, so everything's changed for all of us. It happened quickly. But we're excited to see what this team can become.
Oh, I'm excited we've created a lot of Owl fans up here for you as well. So we're also excited about that.
Hey,
by the way,
John, you mentioned through text that someone spotted me at the Apple Festival. There's not a Dusty May doppelganger running around.
I think there is, because somebody texted me and said, I just saw Dusty May at the Bloomfield Apple Festival. And that's when I texted you to go, and you laughed and you said it wasn't me. Yeah, you do. That person has to be from Shacklemack or Linton or something, right? There's nobody that looks like you on our side of the river.
That county is vast. They could be from anywhere.
My brother, keep on keeping on. I thought you would be a really great resource to talk to today about this. I can't thank you enough for coming on. And we'll have you on here relatively soon to maybe scout out exactly the expectations of this year with Florida Atlantic, man. I appreciate you. Best of luck. You got a lot of Owl fans up here with you.
I appreciate that, John. Thanks for having me on.
It's Dusty May right there, the head coach of Florida Atlantic, the one-time manager for Bob Knight in Bloomington on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Brent Holverson on the other side. Tommy S. is going to join us, too. We're at Coaches Downtown. It is a Larceny Bourbon Locks and Lunazul Tequila Shots Thursday, Week 9. We got that coming up in our picks. Kevin Harlan of CBS, Mark Patrick, and Ryan Carr, all still to come. Don't go anywhere. Hour 2 is up next. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Stewart, the former Panthers running back, and more. I'll talk to you at 3.
The Ride with JMV, 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey, welcome back to Coach's Tavern. Thank you so much for joining us. Dusty May a little bit earlier, the head coach of Florida Atlantic. We talked to Brian Evans, the former IU player, the former Big Ten Player of the Year, played in the NBA too. Really good first hour of conversation revolving around the passing at the age of 83 of Bob Knight. And I'll also offer you up some more of my thoughts on growing up, you know, and much like you. The reason why I bring it up in reflection is I'm just knowing that most of you around here grew up the same way. And then I think it's also important because those of you that did not, let's just say, for example, the younger generation, we can tell you a little bit of something of why this is such an incredibly important time. That is easily understood with a lot of what you're going to hear a little bit later on. Kevin Harlan of CBS and TNT, bottom of the hour. Mark Patrick, who so many times here as an Indiana Broadcasting Hall of Famer had conversations and interviews with Bob Knight. Mark joins us in the 5 o'clock hour. Ryan Carr was a former manager, too. Ryan Carr now heads up the personnel department and scouting and all that with the Pacers. Ryan Carr actually came east to the state of Indiana specifically to go to IU and be a manager for Bob Knight. We'll talk to Ryan about that incredible story coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. But right now, week 9 in our Larceny Bourbon Locks and Lunazul Tequila Shots. Hold on before we cue the band. Brent Holverson, our betting analyst, rejoins us. And look at him back
it's
from
the
Mexico.
Tommy Sutton.
The Tommy S. Mexico, a lot of important goings on from what I hear.
Yes.
When you decide to get out of the country, something happens, huh?
Yeah, you walk down to Mexico, you fly into Mexico, whatever we did, and you come back engaged.
Wow, congrats,
the love
man.
of your life. So
Congratulations,
awesome.
my
Yeah,
brother.
cheers.
That is
Cheers.
awesome right there. Tommy S. here at Coach's Tavern. Engaged.
Glad to have you guys here. It's been a while. So
It has been.
It feels like forever, but here we are.
That's
it is
back
weird
in action.
because it
Back
always seems
together.
like we're here a lot, and then we haven't been here for a while, it
Well,
seems.
you know, that rascal Ryan Nally takes all the shows. So.
Come on now.
You know, what's cool, though, is this is the first year we're at a different place every week, which is great.
Correct.
We
Right.
do miss great places like Coach's Tavern here and Tom Sutton, so it's an honor to be back, my man.
The
Tell you
good
that.
thing is we can create content where we can be here on a day.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean,
And you know,
there
the
are
other
times.
great thing I love seeing is this guy comes out to a lot of the shows. So
He does.
We get our Tommy
Actually,
Sutton fix.
He comes out to everyone every
Almost
Thursday,
every one
I
of them,
think. I think you're there
absolutely.
almost every
As many as I
Thursday.
can. Yeah, unfortunately, you guys were at Kips last week?
We were at
Yes.
Kips last week.
Of course, we were busy here. I couldn't get out of here, but I was going to come up there. That's right by my house. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry I missed you guys, but hey, here you are. Here we are.
No, great to be back, my man. That's
Things are going well here?
Things are going very well. It's been a great football season, and we got the Pacers in action. I only lost a couple, but they still look good. They're fun to watch.
They got beat by 50 last night, Tommy, yes.
Is that what the final? I saw they were down by 30. I didn't see.
Yeah,
what the total-
Hopefully, Bally Sports went out on you or didn't start with you because they lost by 50
I
last
couldn't
night.
even get the game. I don't.
It
think.
was it was incredibly embarrassing, and it was and I mean at any point a non-competitive game. And I know it's early season, and certainly we're not concentrating on that today. But that cannot be anywhere near this team. That was a complete and utter
team's better,
embarrassment last night.
And don't get us wrong. Boston is a true contender this year. They
They
probably have
are.
a chip on their shoulder after last year. So.
Sure. A couple key cogs out, too.
Let me
for the
tell you
Pacers.
this. Last night, the Pacers could not guard this chair, and I'm wondering if they're going to be able to guard this chair. They were awful. I mean, it was just a layup line, easy makes. It's stuff. I don't know if you can just snap your fingers or wave a magic wand and have anybody going to be getting in a defensive stance and playing it because they weren't last night. But
Well, I fully believe Rick Carlisle can change that around. He won't tolerate that. He'll get these guys righted. So.
they better tomorrow night beat some Cleveland ass is what they better do.
Well, they did last Friday.
They better do that because last night was an abomination is what it was,
They should
honestly.
come out angry tomorrow.
All right, guys, you want to do some Week 9 Larceny Bourbon Locks, Lunazul Tequila Shots? Jacob's trying to get a picture of us all right there. Oh, wow. Is there a little landscape in the background right there, Jacob? All right, cue the band back there, James. Let's do our Week 9 Larceny Bourbon Locks, Lunazul Tequila Shots. Is this true? This starts tonight. Are we talking Titans and Steelers?
That is the truth.
Do I kind of want to fall in love all over again with Will Levis, or was that just a flash in the pan? His NFL debut with 4 touchdowns. Titans win on the road in Pittsburgh tonight. Yeah, Pittsburgh hadn't been really good so far. I hesitate to go with a rookie second game starting quarterback, even with the success he had in his first start, going into Pittsburgh against that defense still, even if it's not the defense that we always remember it to be. In this case, 2.5-point favorites, the Steelers. I'm going to lay that, Brent. Give me the Steelers at home.
You know, this game here, John, and again, this Thursday night magic here, right? The Steelers are like 7-1 on Thursday nights, the last 8 games. Pittsburgh really, they do well at home, right? But we've got this little flash of Will Levis like you speak of. But You're right, it's game 2. It's prime time. The rookie's coming out, and he's going up against the Steelers in Pittsburgh on Thursday night. I think, honestly, this game is going to be 20-17. We flip a coin to see who wins it. But I'm going to take the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll lay that less than a field goal.
Thomas.
Yeah, Pittsburgh hasn't looked that great. Pickett's been hurt, but he's playing tonight. Who knows how healthy he is, but I don't think it matters because Mr. Levis is going to be introduced to Mr. T.J. Watt tonight.
Hello.
You don't want that guy in your face, but he's going to be there all night. I'm going to go with you guys. Let's lay that 2.5.
Hey, it's a good Frankfurt game coming up on Sunday. Dolphins and Chiefs. Colts going to be there with the Patriots coming up next week. But this week, the Dolphins and the Chiefs. The Chiefs are 1.5-point favorites. Man, Kansas City looked like a load of crap in Denver this last weekend. You know what's going to be the cure for that? Miami's offense, maybe not so much. But I think we're going to see a Kansas City bounce back. Lay the 1.5 on the road in Germany and give me the Chiefs. Brent.
You know, this is one of those big 3 games we talked about. 3 great games this week, and it starts off at 9:30 Sunday morning with Miami at the Chiefs. All my gut tells me you should take Miami in this. It really, truly does. However, I think what you just mentioned there, I think you got a healthy Mahomes. He had the flu last week. They looked horrible. They played, it was the lowest scoring game of his career, I think, honestly, 9 points. I think they get it back here in Germany. I think it's going to be a pretty good shootout, 28-25. Kansas City covers that 1.5.
Tommy, yes.
Miami is 6-2 on the season. 6-0 against teams under 500. 0-2 against winning teams.
Indeed.
So I can't bet against Patrick Mahomes. He's the best in the league, the best there is. I'm going to lay that 1.5. I'm with you guys.
Oh, Tommy, yes. Your guy Kirk Cousins has a flat tire that's going to keep him out for the season, and skeptical about the offseason and next year, too. Because of that, the Falcons are now 4.5-point favorites at home against Minnesota coming up this weekend. Josh Dobbs now in the fold as a backup quarterback. Is it Jaron Hall?
Jaron Hall, the rookie, will get the start.
Yeah. Well, there's no way in the world I can take the Falcons. Lay the 4.5, Brent. Check that. The Vikings, lay the 4.5. Give me the Falcons Sunday.
Yeah, Atlanta's got Taylor Heineke going up against Jaron Hall. So this is going to be, again, we've got a lot of these
outstanding game right there.
We've got a lot of these quarterback shakeups going on right now. This is one of them. This is going to be another one of those games that I think it's going to kind of be tough, but I'm going to give a little bit of lean to the Falcons. I'm sorry, Tommy, but I think a couple key cogs they're missing. And Jaron Hall didn't look that great against the Packers last week when he came in. Now he's going to get a little practice time. I know you got Dobbs on the bubble, getting ready to probably come in the week 10. But until then, I'm going to take the Falcons. I'll lay that 4.5 with
Tommy.
you, John.
Yeah, I don't know what we got in Jaron Hall. His first pass attempt last week resulted in a sack strip.
Yeah.
I don't know how good he is. I think he's very raw, obviously. This is a big time for him. Like stepping in and saying, hey, take over this offense that Kirk Cousins perfected. Dobbs is in the background. Obviously, need to learn the offense. I don't know what we got with Jaron Hall, so I'm gonna roll with you guys. Let's take the Atlanta Falcons. Maybe by the hook. I don't know.
Yeah, by the hook, take it to 4. It's a key number.
Seahawks Ravens 4-point. Check that. Is that 4 or 6 here? I cover that up.
That is 6. That is
6-point favorites are the Ravens at home coming up this weekend. Yeah, this is going to be easy to me. I'm going to go ahead and take the Ravens. Lay that 6. Brent Holverson.
Baltimore's looked good. We've talked about them all year, but they're really starting to play some good ball right now. Seattle kind of plays down a little bit. They pushed last week, I think, or they covered by a half point. I don't think they're going to be able to do it in Baltimore. I think Baltimore covers this. It's going to be like a 25-17, nothing sexy. Give me Baltimore, lay the 6.
Fabius.
Yeah, man, Baltimore is really playing lights out right now. Seattle's a good team, but it's hard for a West Coast team to go all the way to the East Coast and get a victory. Looks like the Ravens quarterback. Lamar Jackson's back. He's back in form. So
yes, he is.
I'm going to roll with you guys. I'll take those 6 points.
My goodness. The Cardinals and the Browns, are you kidding me? And the Browns are 8-point favorites. Ugh.
Ugly line.
That's gross right there. I'm just going to go ahead and take the 8 points and give me the Cardinals on the road. That's really the only reason. Give me 8 points in the Cardinals, Brent.
Well, to the tune of, I don't know who Clayton Tune really is. That's a quarterback for Arizona.
Yeah.
And we don't know who the quarterback for Cleveland is.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of points in this up-and-down game. I kind of have a feeling Deshaun Watson's going to be back. I know P.J. Walker's banged up, too. So if they go to number 3, I mean, this is an absolute just dud anyway. Wouldn't touch it with your money, John. However, we got to pick them.
I'm glad.
That number is so shocking to me that it's 8. It's way too high. But that's why I'm going to take it, because they know a lot more than I do, and I'm going to take that. I'm going to take Cleveland, lay the 8.
Hello, Tommy S.
Yeah, Arizona, they're just not good, and you might have a rookie quarterback start. Cleveland's got a great defense. They played lights out on defense this year. That's a lot of points to lay, but let's roll. 8 points.
My goodness. Larceny Bourbon Locks, Lunazul Tequila Shots, week number 9. Man, Brent, your Packers are an absolute disaster.
Horrible.
What a mess. They get the Rams at Lambeau coming up this weekend. 3-point favorites. I'm going to take that 3 and give me the Rams. The Rams aren't that much better, but the Packers, holy crap, Brent. What's happening up there?
That is
Jordan
really,
Love.
really,
There's no love for Jordan.
Really, really bad. But I tell you, it's going to be interesting because the Rams, Stafford, I don't think he's going to play. That's why you see this number where it's at. It's Brett Ripon, right? Like he's Brett Ripon's still around. Like is
that Mark Ripon's son?
I believe it is. I mean,
wow.
it's still kind of that namesake, right? I don't think he's going to have anything to do. I think you got a running back disaster on the backfield. I'm still looking for Aaron Jones to come back from week 1, where he had a great game. He hasn't done anything since. I think this is where the ship's going to turn a little bit here, though. I like the Packers not only to win this, John. I'm going to lock this one up. This is Larceny Lock of the Week. Packers by 7. Packers by 7. Come on.
Fool's gold right there, Tommy.
Fool's gold.
What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, it's a disaster up there in Green Bay. Vikings got a win there last week, but they lost everything with Kirk Cousins. But Jordan Love doesn't seem like he's the answer, but he's a first-year starter, so
he stinks.
I'll give you that. Yeah,
I'll give you that too.
You can talk all you want about Green Bay bad. So, I don't know who's playing for the Rams quarterback, if it's Ripon or if it's Stafford, but I'm going to go with the Rams, actually. I'm going to take those points. I don't
mind it right there. Larceny Bourbon Locks, Lunazul Tequila Shots. Texans disappointed. They were the first victim of the Carolina Panthers. With Bryce Young at quarterback last weekend, back at home, 2.5-point favorites against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Lay that 2.5. Give me Stroud and the Texans at home.
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of those under games. Again, we talked that 20-17, 19-16, something like that. I think it's a field goal game, and I think that 3 is going to be just enough for Houston to cover. So give me Houston, lay the 2.5.
Yeah, Tampa started off well. Looked like Baker Mayfield finally found a home, and they started 2-0, now they're 3-4, I think. So they're struggling. Something's going on there. Stroud's looked pretty good other than last week, but I'm going to lay that 2.5. Let's go with the Texans.
Let me tell you this. It seems like the Commanders traded everybody early this week before the trade deadline, but Dexter Manley and Charles Mann. Commanders at the Patriots. I hate the Patriots, too. They stink. 3-point favorites. I'm going to lay that 3 and give me the Patriots at home. The Commanders just said, hey, we're done.
Fire sale.
We are done, and they're done right here. So give me the Pats. Brent.
Yeah, I agree. Until I saw that, I would look at this game. There's no way I would touch New England. However, I think with all that fire sale going on, I think there's a lot of other stuff going on. It's going to be tough. I think New England's going to be able to sneak in there. They're at home. It's still Belichick. It's not going to be a pretty one, but give me the Patriots. Cover the 3.
Tommy.
Yeah, like you said, Washington said, hey, we're throwing the towel in. I don't know why. I think Riverboat Ron's probably in his final weeks as coach up there. But the Patriots, how awful are they? I mean, they've fallen from grace, obviously losing
There's
Brady.
A fall from grace.
And I'm not upset about seeing that. But I'm going to go ahead and lay those 3 points and take those Patriots at home.
Yeah, the Saints gave the Colts a little bit of workout last week, did they not? 8.5-point favorites at home versus the Bears. I'm going to go ahead and lay the 8.5. That's a big number for a team that I'm very skeptical about. Lay that 8.5 and give me the Saints, however, against the Bears. Brent?
Yeah, the Saints, I think they got the firepower here. Justin Fields still in back. I think he's another week out. I think the Saints are starting to click a little bit. They got some good stuff going on. Kamara's looking good. You got 3 great receivers there. I think they're going to actually light it up at home. I think they're going to cover that 8.5 as well. I'll take the Saints with you, Johnny.
Tommy S. is a good guy.
I'm going to make this my Larceny lock of the week.
You lock
Because if
it
there's
up.
any team worse in the
Lock
NFC
it up.
North than the Green Bay Packers, the Chicago Bears.
Lock it up.
And I think, are they starting the rookie again this week? Or
Yeah.
is Phil,
I
okay.
believe so, right?
Yep.
Last check they were,
Yeah,
yeah.
the Saints seem to be getting it together. They rolled
Yeah.
the Colts last week. I'm going to lay that 8.5. That's my lock.
Got a little practice time against the Colts last week in that defense. Certainly in the secondary they did. Larceny Bourbon Locks, Lunazul, Tequila Shots, Giants, and the Vegas Raiders. I think the Raiders are 1.5-point favorites.
This might be the ugliest game of the week.
Aiden O'Connell is
There's
going to
a
be the
few.
starting quarterback now out of Purdue. I really want to see him do well. This is going to be a
I
great
do too.
test
He's
pattern
easy to
for
cheer
him. I just think I don't think it's going to happen. Give me that 1.5, but give me the Giants on the road. They suck. The Raiders suck. We all suck. But give me that 1.5 on the road, Brent.
Both teams suck. I think this is going to come down to a 2-point game, John. It's going to be 20-18. But you know what? I think the changing of the guards in Vegas, I think
The guard changing.
the guard changing going on. I think you got Aiden O'Connell. He's going to get in there and get some play finally. I like him better than Danny Nichols. I don't think Danny's been throwing dimes this year. I'm going to go ahead and take the Raiders, lay the 1.5. Vegas.
Tommy.
Boy, Danny Nichols got his nickels and said, all right, I'm done.
Yeah,
Thanks for the
exactly.
money, suckers.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like Aiden O'Connell. I mean, I'm an IU guy, but he's easy kid to cheer for.
He is.
You just like him.
All the way up he worked, Tommy S.
So,
He
you know, I
did.
think changing the guard, McDaniels, he's trash, he's out. Give me the Raiders. I'll take that.
Look for Devontae to have a huge game in that game,
Devontae's
too.
angry. That's not a good place to be.
I did also forget. Let me back up real quick, John.
I didn't get traded. I'm mad.
You're not
Some red
traded.
numbers.
You're not traded. You're staying on.
I'm here.
You're just like
Thank you very
Devontae.
much.
Lunazul's shot of the week goes back to the last game, that
Yes.
Saints game. Taysom Hill. That guy has been playing
That's
lights
only
out.
against the Colts, though.
Well,
Because
true, but
apparently
they're
they don't
playing.
recognize what the hell he does.
But they're playing the Bears, which is even worse. So he's going to come out, but he's put up 14 to 18 points
Matt
the last 2-3
Eberflus will
weeks.
recognize what he does.
I think he's going to have
What's
his
this
hands
Taysom
full
Hill guy
already.
do?
Taysom Hill is
Wow.
he's a hybrid tight end.
When he goes in the game, sometimes he does this.
He does it all. He can
Like
run it,
match
throw
games.
it, kick it.
Sometimes he does
He's
blank.
all over the place.
He's all over the place. Anyway, that's my Lunazul shot
Swiss
of the
Army
week.
knife.
Eagles host the Cowboys. That's a good one coming up this weekend. 3-point favorites of the Eagles. Lay the 3. Give me Philly, a non-believer right now. Still in Dallas, Brent.
I think this game's going to end in a push in this game. I think this game ends up 27-24 Eagles.
That's your Matchbox 20.
It's my Matchbox 20, Johnny.
Push.
I tell you that I think, but again, I think it's Dallas has been playing really good lately too. So you got to watch out for that. But Philly, they haven't put it all together this year, but I think they're starting to get it going. I think, and just for my disliking of the Cowboys, Philadelphia Eagles fly high.
Tommy.
Yeah, I mean, Philly is the best team in the league, 7-1, looking good. Dallas, I'm just not sold on them yet. Like, I know they've looked good the last couple of weeks. Don't forget the Giants put a beat down on them, or the 49ers, put a beat down on them. Now the 49ers are struggle bus, so
Yes, they are.
I like games in Philly. I like Philly. I'll lay those 3.
Larceny Bourbon Locks, Lunazul Tequila Shots. How about the Bengals and the Bills? Oh, how that
There's
looked.
a game.
Remember what happened a year ago, last time these two teams
Massacre
met.
in the snow.
Well, and then you had the DeMar Hamlin thing
That
going
too.
on, too. So that was happening right there. I look at it this way. The Bengals are 1-point favorites. I think now we have seen the Phoenix, and this is a horrible analogy, rising here in terms of Cincinnati. Like everything is getting back on board now. They're going to be like what we expected. I think this for me is an easy lay of the 1 and give me the Bengals coming up this weekend. Brent?
Another tough game, but this is one of those big 3, right? They're all nice and separate. You got that Miami game very early. You got the afternoon game with the Cowboys, Eagles, and you got the night game coming in. I think it's going to be a close game, but
You
I'm
agree
going to
with
go
me,
ahead.
don't you?
I'm going to go ahead with Litzy's Bengals since Litzy's going to be there, and I saw they're going to have a stripe out pattern going on there over there in Cincinnati. So Cincinnati Bengals for Litzy.
Litzy's such a great guy right there. We love Litzy. What do you got, Tommy S?
Yeah, it looks like Joe Burrow is finally healthy. That calf's not bothering me anymore. The Bengals seem to be back. Got a big win last week on the road in San Francisco.
True dat.
I'm rolling with you guys. Hooday.
Hooday.
All right, Jets and Chargers. Holy crap. I don't like any of this right here.
No,
the Jets are right now on a mission. They're on a mission to see if Aaron Rodgers can back up his word and be good to go by the time they're in it late in the season.
No way.
Which is funny. There's no
That's Achilles,
way.
man. That's a year.
I want to see it, though. I don't want to say that. I don't want to see anybody get injured, but I would like to see him try it, I guess.
If he can do it, he's the wizard. So.
Chargers are 3-point favorites. I'm going to go ahead and take that 3. Give me the Jets, Brent.
God, I never would have thought I'd say that. I never thought I'd be agreeing with you on
You're
that.
compelled, aren't you?
I am propelled, and I will tell you what. Not only is Aaron Rodgers going to be back this year, he's going to be back and do some. He's going to do some damage to him. The dude's kind of superhuman.
He may do damage, but it may be to something else.
If you can't tell. But he is. You see him throw it out on the field. I mean, he's out there. He's going to be back there. He's going to prove everybody wrong. So, just for that reason alone, I think the Chargers win at 21-20, but I'm going to take those 3 points. We'll get the cover, maybe get the loss, but give me the Jets.
He'll be okay until his foot falls off. Let me slide out of the pocket here. Oh, wait a minute, my foot fell off.
Rodgers might be one of those guys that plays like Brady until he's like 45. You never know. He's in such good health.
Yep.
So, well, not right now, obviously.
What kind of drugs and medications, my man?
We can't speak about that on air.
Yes, we can.
Oh, we can. A lot of them.
We certainly can. A lot.
Hey, he likes to go out and do these retreats.
I guarantee you that dude's been out at the Joshua tree before.
Well, he's seen several Joshua trees. So
seen Joshua trees that weren't real.
Yeah, right.
Tommy, yes. Did you take a shot at this game? Did I miss it?
I have not yet. The Chargers are kind of disappointing this year. As powerful as I thought they were going to be.
And they always are. That's just kind of their deal.
They're just going to letdown team. They're going against the Jets defense that's pretty darn good. I think Herbert is my fantasy quarterback. He's kind of struggled this year. He's going to struggle this game. I will actually take the Jets and the 3 points.
We're all three on the Jets.
That's crazy.
That's scary.
We're such losers.
I think we pretty much have.
All right, Colts and Panthers. Colts have just, oh gosh, you look back at the Browns game. Certainly, you look at last week against the Saints. Let me tell you this. Last year against the Commanders, and then luckily it didn't happen for him. It was Heineke and not Carson Wentz. That shot down, if you remember, the Colts here a year ago. And we're about the anniversary where Frank Reich got canned. So if the Colts go into Carolina and give up win number 2 to Frank Reich and Bryce Young in Carolina, that will be a low point of the season. There's no way they can do that. I really don't want to talk about it. Colts are 2.5-point favorites. Lay the 2.5. My Larceny Bourbon Lock of the Week, 22-18. Colts over the Panthers. I have really no idea why I did that. Just from in terms of, man, if they lose this game, what a mess that's going to be to talk about on Monday. I don't want to.
It is, and it's kind of odd that I look at this game and you've got to love the Colts, right? You got to love the Colts in this situation. Carolina just won their first game last week. But I don't see it. I think Carolina's going to go in. I think they're going to upset them. I think they're going. It's going to be a tough game.
Adi Sharaf, their play-by-play man, told me yesterday that Bryce Young may be primed to have a breakout game. And considering they got Tommy S. and you in the secondary to the Colts, this might be it on Sunday. So
I hope I'm wrong on this one, John. But I'm going to take the home dog
because I don't want to talk about this crapola on Monday. So I'm angling for me in the career and for me on paper here.
I'm rooting for you, but I'm going to bet on Carolina. Give me Carolina by the hook, +3.
Tommy S.
Yeah, it's one of those ugly games we talked about that's happening this week. The Colts are so devastated with injuries on defense, giving up tons of points. Going against Bryce Young, maybe this is the game they can get.
They got one right to see Adam Thielen. They got your guy.
They got Adam Thielen, my dude from Minnesota.
Fan.
He's looking good this year, too.
He's got 0 drops this year because the dude's got glue for hands.
He does.
I miss him up there, but Jordan Addison, thank you. He stepped in, but I'm gonna go with the Colts. I'm gonna roll with them. Let's go, horse. Let's get that.
Because you don't want to have me talk about losing to Frank Reich.
I just want happy people in my bar on Sunday. That's what I want.
Can you tell? Are they very unhappy patrons when the Colts win lose? I should say.
You can tell when the Colts win, it's a party downtown. When they lose, it's kind of somber.
Yeah.
People they drink either way because they're happy or they're sad. But
right.
We'll take the happy drinks.
That's right. We like the happy.
Tommy, yes. What you got coming up in your place?
Oh, let's see here. We've got all the action, all the sports action this weekend. College action, got college basketball.
Yes, you do.
Right.
Indiana Hoosiers playing. The Purdue Boilermakers are playing. All the football action Sunday, and December 16th.
My birthday.
That's your birthday. That's our birthday. We turned 20 years old.
Holy crap! I'm not 20.
You're just a year or two older than that.
I'm older than that.
You're 20 years old, huh?
Coaches will have been here 20 years.
That's awesome.
In December, so we're throwing a big party. We got Toys for Tots in the house. We're going to have auctions, raffles.
You want me to jump out of a cake for you in my G-string?
No, I do
not. No, John.
I want the crowd to stay. We'll have Marines on site. Come on in. We're giving away tickets, raffle off tickets, drink specials. So it's a celebration.
I bet you'd be packed out the door if I jumped out of a cake in my grape smugglers.
Man, this place would be looking like a desert.
You know it would be. They'd be
and
lined up out the door.
That same day is loaded with action. You got Kansas coming to Bloomington play the Hoosiers.
What do you think's popping out of that cake loaded with action, too, buddy? Let me tell you that.
And the Boilermakers are taking on the Arizona.
Oh, the Wildcats. Yeah.
Over at Gamebridge that day. So
that's loaded up right there.
Wow. So we're having an action-packed day, but
December 16th.
We're here. We get all the games.
Happy birthday to us all.
Yeah.
Yes. December's going to be a great month.
Looking forward to it.
Well done.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know it's only November 2nd, so November's going to be great.
Pre-plan there. Got to pre-plan.
People are going to write it down right here.
Got to get it on the books. Absolutely.
What do you got going before break?
Hey, I got a lot of. I'm sitting next to two legends right here, so I'm just honored to be here. We got all kinds of good stuff going on with Heaven Hill too.
Tommy, yes, I know you're a Bob Knight guy too.
Yes.
Right, and we've been talking about that. We will again coming up in just a little bit too, and certainly.
And thank you for your opening. That really made me reflect on memories of watching IU basketball as a kid. I got to see the 81 championship, the 87 championship, watch it with my dad.
Yep.
It's brought back all the good memories of Bob Knight.
I think about my grandparents all the time. I miss my grandparents so much, and they were such a big part of watching IU basketball, watching the Bob Knight Show on Channel 4 every week. So.
Yep, absolutely. So the general will be missed.
No doubt about that. Tommy, yes, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Brent, thank you. You guys will be back coming up in just a bit, too. On the other side, Kevin Harlan of CBS and TNT will join us. I watched a game today in 2000. It was IU upsetting, both in the top 25, IU upsetting Michigan State at Assembly Hall, and Kevin Harlan was on that call. I believe it was Kevin Harlan and John Sunvold on the call for CBS. Kevin's going to join us coming up on the other side. Larceny Bourbon Locks, Lunazul Tequila Shots on a Thursday, Week 9, Coach's Tavern downtown. We would love to see you for the free samples here, plus a lot of reflection on the passing at the age of 83 of legendary IU head coach Bob Knight. This is 93.5 and 107.
9, our picks up now. Disagree, agree, what have you. And Brent Holverson will rejoin coming up in a bit. Mark Patrick's going to join us at 5 o'clock today. And Ryan Carr coming up at 5:30. And obviously, a lot of this show has been built around talking and reflecting on the life and the effect that Bob Knight had on all of us around here. And you're going to say, well, it's not all of us. I pretty much feel secure, thank you, Brent, that when I say all of us, it's pretty much around here, all of us. We talked to Brian Evans a little bit earlier, of course, the former Big Ten Player of the Year out of Terre Haute South, played in the NBA. You could tell he was incredibly emotional when he joined the show back in hour number 1. Dusty May of Florida Atlantic, their head coach, was a one-time manager for Bob Knight back at IU, and Dusty joined us in the 3 o'clock hour as well. And I wanted to bring this because I thought I had a rather unique perspective. And that perspective is this was the first sports that I truly and thoroughly enjoyed was, IU basketball and Coach Bob Knight, and that was handed off to me by my grandparents. And it's interesting, whenever I think about Bob Knight and IU basketball, especially in those years. For example, I brought up 1975. I was 5 years old. But, 75 all through the 1980s as I was growing up, it was a rite of passage that is what you're watching. That was a part of your fabric during the season. And, you heard Dusty May talk about making out a schedule in the state of Indiana and making sure that you didn't schedule it on top of a Bob Knight coached basketball game on that particular night. It just did. And I completely understand if some of you out there, if you're younger, you don't thoroughly understand it, you don't really understand it. And that's why we're here to help educate you on that. And then I know that there are some out there that say, well, you got to talk about the good and the bad, and there's no doubt you do. Doesn't mean you have to talk about that today. But I mentioned to Brian Evans this, and he lived it. He was in it. And I will always have a great deal of respect for those that were actually inside the program, went through the program, and were a part of it. We have more than a handful of friends of this show that have gone through that. And I'm first to tell you, I would have cried like a little baby. I mean, I thought I was tough, right? We all think we're tough, and then you get in that situation, and then not so much. So I would have cried like a little baby. I know that. So I always give respect to those that have been through and certainly lasted in that program, and especially made themselves better as a basketball player. And Brian Evans is one hell of an example of that. But I kind of wanted to give this perspective to you today from a human side and somebody that's actually lived it. As I mentioned, that's how I grew up. That was a part of my fabric. And along the way, there was a great deal of good and there was negative. And I was like a lot of you out there that would defend. Now, when I get older and I do a job like this, you become a little bit jaded. Maybe not as much as a fan. I always explain to you, in terms of me being a fan, that I can be a fan for Indiana State, for Eastern Green, and for the Reds, but everything else I kind of got to keep on a balanced, even plane, if you will, for the sake of what I do. So that gets you a little bit jaded. But there is nothing that has been more vividly in memory in my life than Bob Knight and IU basketball. And there will never, ever be anything like that around here. And I'm talking about the good and the bad. I saw on social media a little bit earlier today where some people are upset because, you had stories that have been written. Jake, by the way, Jake Query of Query & Company has a great story about it in Reflection that you can find on our website. And I just think I come at you from the unique perspective of it being in the fabric of my life. And most of you out there listening, you went through the same thing. Seriously, we're all in the same family in terms of that.
Now, if you moved in here, if you're not from here, if you're a little bit younger, you may not fully understand. And you certainly won't understand when I tell you that there will never be something like that again in the state of Indiana. Everybody basically lived on every word and phrase of Bob Knight. And I've talked about this. Carving out time every single week, every single game, every single week for the Bob Knight Show. You know, you just can't wait to see what he says next, you know, good or bad. And that was a significant part of growing up for me. And that no longer is there, and that is a tremendous void. I mean, it really is. I mean, in terms of growing up and things that you know, and I often tell you this, we really do embrace much more what we did growing up because we didn't have that responsibility of being an adult. It's not like that there are fewer things to be happy about as an adult. You just don't get the same amount of time to score your adult touchdown, do your touchdown dance. I know I sound like Parenthood right here. I'm not trying to quote it, but you don't have time to celebrate it before you're on to the next thing. When you're young, when you're growing up with sports, you have time to do that. And it is much more vivid and much more profound and will always be that way. And I also mentioned that when I was growing up, I watched a lot of these games with my grandparents. And if there was something that I could snap my finger and have back today, it would be my grandparents. If I could talk to somebody, you know, one last time, it would be my grandparents. I miss them a great deal. And a lot of my sports enjoyment, because we had 3 channels where I grew up, was watching IU basketball and watching Bob Knight coach IU basketball when I was young, and it was with my grandparents. So just all this flood of incredible memories. So I guess what I'm trying to tell you is you didn't necessarily have to be a part of the team. You didn't necessarily have to go through the program to be coached up, you know, to be a manager, you know, to cover. It's weird. Like, the only thing I ever covered, really, of the Bob Knight era was his 2000 firing, which was so incredibly surreal. I vividly remember that to this day. I mean, a Raiders game going on over at the Dome, and that wasn't going well. And then, you know, once you went over to IUPUI where this was taking shape, that wasn't going well either. It was, to this day, incredibly surreal. And you know, those are the types of memories that will live with you forever. But again, mostly in terms of basketball, they're incredible memories that have been shared with family and friends. So that's what I think about today. And again, you haven't had to be a part of the program, you know, to coach it, to play in it, to be a manager in it, to have covered it. We've had some great people around here, including our late great friend Robin Miller, who has long time covered IU basketball and covered Bob Knight. Bill Benner, you know, has been a part of that beat as a columnist and a writer as well. We have a lot of friends around here that have done that, and I have not had the consistent pleasure of doing so. But I have lived it, and you know, we have lived it together, and that's what makes it so important on a day like today to be able to reflect to those moments. Because even with the negativity that you have, more times than not, I would guarantee you this, you're going to find, you know, those moments to where you knew exactly where you were when something was going down. You knew exactly where you were when something was happening. And we have far few of those times as we grow older and we adult and we mature. And those are the moments that I'm talking about today. And those are the moments I feel secure because, again, that's how I grew up. I grew up in it. I grew up a part of it. So we've been sharing that today. And we can, if you like it, 239-1070 as well. I haven't taken any phone calls today. Haven't really thought about taking any phone calls today. I just kind of wanted to speak on how I felt because, again, I've been around this market for 19 years. Yesterday was the start of the 19th year of me doing my own show here, which is incredible. I started back in November 1 of 2004 doing my own show. And there are a lot of things that I've learned around here, and that is one. I don't often, hopefully, try to tell you something that I don't know or try to convey something I don't know. but I've always been 100% honest with you, and I love to bring people on the show that have had that particular experience. And that's what today is about, whether it's Brian Evans or Dusty May or Mark Patrick coming up here at 5 o'clock or Ryan Carr coming up here at 5:30. I just think that this is important. And again, this is not overstating it or this is not hyperbole. You will never have an era of anybody that was as meaningful for so many years, for decades, as we saw, multiple decades. Nobody more meaningful to the state of Indiana than Bob Knight was. You will never see that again. Tommy S. can join us on the other side. Maybe Kevin Harlan. I don't know where Kevin is right now. We'll look, see if we can find him before Mark Patrick joins us. Mark Patrick, who has had a number of interviews with Bob Knight over the years, the Indiana Broadcasting Hall of Famer, going to join us at the top of the hour. I mentioned Ryan Carr is going to be here as well. We're live at Coach's Tavern. We are downtown. Can't wait to talk with you. If you guys want to jump on board, you certainly can, but I would love to see you. Larceny Bourbon Locks, Lunazul Tequila Shots, week number 9 of the NFL, and more incredible reflection on what is an emotional day for a lot of people there, and we understand that here on this station. It's 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Fall in Indy, and if you hate the paint, do what your neighbor Mark did. He called Rhino Shield.
Two-story home, built in 1992. Around 2001, looking at needing the paint, I heard a radio ad, with Rhino Shield. You
Fan.
The Ride with JMV, 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey, we're back live at Coach's Tavern today. Larceny, Bourbon Locks, Lunazul, Tequila Shots. Mark Patrick, the Indiana Broadcast Hall of Famer, is going to join me coming up at the top of the hour. Ryan Carr, the player personnel director and former scout for the Pacers, who at one time, and the reason why he ended up in Bloomington was because he wanted to be a manager for Bob Knight. He has a unique story. He's going to join us coming up at 5:30 today. You know, I didn't mention this, didn't get into a lot of it, and I'm sure the Pacers are happy about that. What an absolute woeful performance that was last night. I know a lot of you didn't get a chance to watch it because of the continued Valley Sports fiasco. At some point, the Pacers themselves will have to address this. It can't keep going like this. Now, you sidestep it from last night because last night was such a basketball mess. I mean, an absolute disaster that I'm sure if you didn't get it, you're probably glad you didn't get a chance to watch it. However, you're still paying for it, and you should be pissed about that. You should think that's a joke. And I know that it's not the Pacers' fault, but it is their product that has been left in limbo. That is the issue to get, and it's their fan base that's paying for the lack of service and paying for a pain in the ass. Going to have to step up. At some point, you're going to have to step up. Pacers get the Cavaliers coming up tomorrow night, just down the street here from Coaches at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Let me tell you what, make up for something right here. How about that demolition by the Celtics last night? I honestly, and I think defense sucks, and I don't like to play it, but I don't know if I've ever seen as bad a defense as that effort last night. That was simply put not being competitive. That was not being competitive. And I also understand if you told me last night, hey, this doesn't look like a 45-win team. Yeah, last night, that didn't look like a one-win team. That was awful and embarrassing. When Schuler Spreadable Cheeses, the spreadability throughout central Indiana right now, the official sponsor inside the lounge via YouTube Live. Original cheddar, sharp cheddar, bacon and cheddar, and pepper jack. Win Schuler Spreadable Cheeses. Again, the official sponsor inside the lounge via YouTube Live and the Ride with JMV. Grab that today. Brent Holverson, our betting analyst, rejoins us right now, too, on a Bob Knight conversation and reflection we've been having. Of course, week 9 of the NFL. J-Law's right there. Everybody packing the place here at Coach's Tavern downtown.
Such a great staple. Look at this place. I mean,
yeah, it's your normal Thursday in here, but it's not your normal Thursday in terms of conversation.
It really isn't. You know, we talked. I mean, man, it's a somber day for Hoosier fans and for basketball fans all around the country. You know, and you know we didn't even talk to. There was a little about the World Series last night, huh? Texas Rangers coming through.
A first-time winner.
Huh? First-time winner
right there.
That was cool. I actually
shout out to our good friend Conrad Brunner, who I used to work with. Who was still a big Rangers fan. He was a Rangers fan because I want to say, did the Washington Senators turn into the Texas Rangers back in the day? I think he started as a Washington Senators fan. But that was a big moment for the Rangers, their first ever in franchise history World Series championship. Impressive.
That was impressive. And
Bruce Bochy's the man, too, by the way.
He is the man. Came back for 1 year and had this vision, and you get, God, Seager, they just look good. You know, they were held without a hit for 6 innings, and all of a sudden they opened that floodgate.
Explode, yeah.
They just explode, and they're a fun team to watch. And again, I wouldn't have thought, you know, you put the 200 lost teams in the past couple of years there in the World Series, and you're not looking at teams like the Orioles and the Dodgers and the Braves and the Rays. Everybody that you thought would be there. They weren't, but I will tell you, I was on the positive side of winning some money on those Rangers.
There's nothing wrong with that. The positive side of winning money.
That was a good thing. So, but yeah, hats off to the Rangers, first time in the history there. So that was good.
So you have some money on the Rangers, although I think when the television numbers come back, the reflection will not be that great.
I saw the numbers. They were the lowest in, I think it was 16 years or something like that. And then you look back and see.
And I'm not a believer in you got to have the major markets, but
Yeah, that and the way that it ended, and the fact that you had the game. What was it? Game 4 was a blowout, right? Was that the 10-0 blowout at the start, and then
yes, because Arizona won, and then they won the game 2. Well, they won game 2, and then they
had
got blown out.
They didn't. Yeah, the competition in the latter portion of that series really wasn't there.
It wasn't there at all. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. And look what again, Texas. They went 11-0 on the road in the postseason.
That, by the way, has never been done.
That has never been done. I mean, they really just had it going. So again, hats off to him. And you're right, Bruce Bochy, man. He just,
wherever he goes,
he's just a cool guy. It was his 4th World Series ring, so that was pretty cool to hit.
That is impressive right there. All right, anything else we're going to talk about here? We're talking about coaches, talking about week number 9, game tonight, games this weekend, the product. What do you got?
Hey, we can always talk about product, and we got some great things coming out. We've got our some of our allocated items, John, coming up, so be on the lookout for Parker's Heritage, 10-year-old rye coming out. Got our Old Fitzgerald, also a 10-year-old coming out, and we got some good stuff out there. And again, I think I brought it up maybe a few weeks ago, but Heaven Hill 7-year-old Bottle and Bond is now officially off allocation and available everywhere. So keep your eyes open for that, because that is some really good juice and a great gift to give for the upcoming holiday season.
As you can see right now inside the Winschuler Spreadable Cheeses Lounge, I'm enjoying a Deep Eddy Vodka Bloody Mary, correct?
You are. I like the switch up here. You just switching gears a little bit.
The Bloody Mary is like a meal to me.
It is. It's good good hydration. You get all your vegetables all right in there, all in one.
It's like a meal. It's like, I'm doing some good right here.
It's a gift that keeps on giving, John.
So Brent Holverson, our betting analyst, right there. Quick break. We'll come back. Yeah, speaking of legendary, I used to work with him. That's how I got my start. It's how I got my name. It is the reason why I'm here right now, going into a 19th year. He is an Indiana Broadcast Hall of Famer. You have known him from Wish TV Channel 8, from the Hoosier Lottery, from RTV 6, from Bob and Tom, from the MLB Network, from Sirius Satellite Radio. He was on ESPN. Mark Patrick, in so many times and so many interviews with Bob Knight. Just some incredible content on the way regarding Bob Knight and his passing from the Hall of Famer, Mark Patrick. Mark joins us coming up next.
Frank Reich revenge game? We'll break it down for you right here on The Fan.
The Ride with JMV, 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey, James, crank this up. Would you back in the studio? Coach's Tavern downtown, Larceny Bourbon Locks, Lunazul Tequila Shots. Thursday, week 9. Our next guest, he is Indiana Broadcasting Hall of Famer. Leave this up to for the legendary Mark Patrick. Mark, do you recognize this song?
Yeah, is this the All Request Show?
Hello, All Request Saturday night with JMV. What would you like to hear?
Yes, it's Jim. I'd like, could you, my uncle passed away. I wondered if you could play Freebird.
Yes, I can. Because I just ate a taco and I need some time to myself. So yes, Freebird would be great. Hey, it is
people don't know the pleasure of working with you when I would come in the afternoon and it's like, what'd you have for lunch, JMV?
Well, you used to, and I think that's one of the reasons why you did some of those at home, because I ate tuna every day. Remember, I ate tuna and like cheese-flavored pretzels, and you didn't like that. Yeah.
Yeah. The line "Morning, ladies" was uttered more than once.
Well, it was a very close friend of ours that described me as, if it stinks, he will eat it. So, yes, I know what you're talking about. How you doing, buddy?
I'm all right.
So I hear you're back up here often.
Well, I'm visiting, yes.
But, I mean, you're hanging around while visiting, though, correct?
Well, I got some family issues.
Don't we all? Don't we all? Hey, and Drew, everything's going well with Drew. I'm in constant communication with Drew. So is he doing what you did and trying to mold a pitcher in the basement like you did?
I don't know. I'm urging him to raise hitters.
Yeah. Well, here's what's weird. So my son is a runner, which is incredibly odd. I always looked at running as punishment, so he runs. But my daughter plays basketball.
Yeah.
So that's weird.
Well, I've seen their photos, and it's weird to see a member of the Vincent family that's so thin.
You know what? I got to introduce her to you sometime. You would love it. She is very outgoing. She is a fun girl, fun to be had by all. So I mean, she loved to hang out and talk. So you would dig it. Mark Patrick, who is the Indiana Broadcasting Hall of Famer, joins us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. We talked a little bit earlier today, Mark. When I think about interviews and media members with Bob Knight during that era, I most often think about you. It seemed like that you were always the go-to for that exclusive interview. And I was always kind of curious how that evolved and obviously your thoughts on the passing at the age of 83 for Bob Knight.
I think that no matter what your particular area of expertise was, that he had to develop a trust with you. And once he did that and you didn't do anything to betray that trust, you were golden with him, I think that people who didn't do that or who he felt like were using him to their advantage for whatever reason, that's who didn't sit well with him. And so, he knew what he could tell me and could tell me that I wasn't going to use it, and he knew what to tell me when he wanted something out there, or his side. So I think we kind of had that mutual understanding through the years, and both appreciated it.
Hey, Mark, I've always wondered this, and I don't think I ever asked you. How did you earn that trust?
I just think it was kind of over a time period, that he, I think he always actually respected people that didn't fear him. And once, I think being on Bob and Tom early actually was a great thing because he was a huge Bob and Tom fan. So when I did things on there, I remember going to a practice early in the 90s when I was at Channel 8, and I had been doing Lou Henson on Bob and Tom. I'd been calling in as Lou Henson because it was right around the time that you may remember this, when he said, Bob Knight's he's just a big bully. That's all he is. He's just a classic bully. And so I called in and was doing stuff. And then like a day later, I was in my Channel 8 hat, and we go down there to get some sound. And he's standing there, and it was kind of just classic Coach Knight that you were going to wait an hour or two from the time you were supposed to talk to him before he would talk to you. And so practice actually started, and we hadn't done the interview that we were supposed to. And it's getting tight because I got to get back to do the 5 and 6. And so I'm just standing there on the end line, and he's standing with all the assistant coaches, and they just keep looking at me. And so he finally walks over, and he says, yeah, we're really curious who the hell is doing Henson on Bob and Tom. And I said, well, I am. And he just looks, no response, just looks a hole through me. And then he goes, that's the funniest JDS I've ever heard. And starts laughing. And he goes, what do you need? And, then it was that. Yeah. But it was just that kind of thing. I think he was just seeing whether I'd tell him the truth about it,
Yeah.
So
that's cool, too. Mark Patrick joins us, the Broadcasting Hall of Famer of the state of Indiana, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I'm just presuming this, and you can tell me if I'm wrong and, describe what was the best interview or the best time you ever had with him. I assume because you had that exclusive when he was fired, and that will go down in history as one of the great interviews in the state of Indiana, certainly regarding Indiana sports. Was that the one that you always remember, or was it another time?
Yeah, that was probably the most memorable because of the circumstances. And I told him up front, I said, look, I've got to ask you some tough questions here, because I said, I can't, I just can't do a, hey, let's go down memory lane type thing, and retain any kind of integrity. So, I want to touch on some of that because the accomplishments have been incredible, but you've been fired here for reasons, and we need to talk about it. And I said, I also will tell you up front, I got a copy of your contract, and so I'm going to ask you about a couple things in that. Because I didn't think it was fair to spring that on him without giving him a chance to think about it. So he said, yeah, whatever you want to do. And I'm like, okay. So that's, yeah. So it ended up being really good, I thought, and something I've always been proud of.
You know, and was it ever a struggle for you when you interviewed him to get out of him what you wanted?
Yeah, you know, because sometimes he just didn't want to do it. and so, I mean, there were a couple times I can remember being down there and, you know, you travel a long way to get there, and then you got to rush back. Yeah. And then you're always behind. And I remember one time he put us off so long that I had to call, and Dennis Goins, the Basketball Hall of Famer, was my photographer, and we had to call ahead and have a satellite truck meet us in Martinsville so that I could do the 5 and 6. But you know, there were sometimes he would just decide he wasn't going to do it, and it didn't matter how long we'd stayed there and waited for him. I finally said, okay, well, if you're not going to give us anything today, we really got to get back.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I mean, literally would start packing things up, and then he'd walk back out there and say, okay, let's go. And then those would usually end up being the very best stuff that we would ever get. So, you know, if you could get him engaged, because we did a couple specials through the years, and if you could get him engaged, it was phenomenal. You know, the storytelling and the insight and the absolute spectacular recall that he had. You know, he would say, yeah, we were I remember that game in '76. We were in Minnesota, and we were down 4, and there was 2:32 left in the half, and I'm going, wait, what? And you know, we'd look back at the tape, and he would be exactly right. There'd be 2:32 left in the half when he stood up, and you know, he says, I said to Scotty at that point, blah 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 blah. And it's like, wow. You did.
Is he the greatest quote of all time?
I guess. I mean, just it's certainly a top fiver.
Yeah.
I mean, it was never less than entertaining to be in those NCAA press conferences because you always had guys, you know, generally East Coast guys that wanted to make a name for themselves by asking some kind of question that got a response out of them. And, you know, when they would do that, all the Indiana guys, you know, we would just be in the back row of those press conferences and we would duck. You know, it's like, okay, here we go. You know, just stuff like, oh yeah, coach, we were wondering why you didn't press. You didn't press with 5 minutes left when you were down 10. Why not press there? I mean, if you ever ask him a basketball strategy question, forget it.
Yeah. I was always told, and I never had the opportunity, Mark, but I was always told that it was always Bob and not Bobby.
Oh yeah, and that was the other thing. They would preface, yeah, Bobby, you sat down. It was weird. We thought, but Bobby, you didn't play Calbert Cheney for 10 minutes. He'd hit his last 5 shots, and then he sat down. And you, Bobby, you didn't play him for 10 minutes. So we wonder why you didn't do that.
That went over well.
Yeah, that would always go over well.
So Mark Patrick, who is the Indiana Broadcast Hall of Famer, you know him, Wish, Hoosier Lottery, Bob and Tom. WNDE, you know him obviously. RTV6, hosted videos back in the day. I'm incredibly jealous of that stint, hosting videos that you did back in the mid-1980s. Sirius Satellite Radio, MLB Network. He's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Did he ever get pissed at you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There was a time that after that interview aired, he didn't like somebody from back when the Star was actually a newspaper and had different, get this, they had different reporters for different subjects.
No way, really? Shocking.
And so I think it was Mark Allen, who was a tremendous writer, had done an interview with me because the interview I had done with Coach Knight on his firing had gotten such a big reaction. So he had called and was asking me some stuff about that, and he wrote an article in the Star about it. And Coach Knight took offense at something I had said in that article. And I think it kind of more goes back toward, what we said about he didn't want to feel like you were using him for your own good or publicity or whatever. And so I think he felt like, and it, while the quote was what I said, it also didn't quite capture how I said it, because it was in black and white rather than in audio. And so I said, well, so I talked to him and I said, well, here's how I said it. And if that still bugs you, then that's fine. That's your prerogative. But I said, I think you came off looking pretty good. So
I don't know if I've ever asked you. Mark Patrick joins us. Did you grow up an IU fan? And I know you graduated high school Brownsburg 1977, basketball player. I didn't know if you grew up an IU fan or not. And then what Knight got there in 71. So I was assuming you probably thoroughly enjoyed 76 and the unbeaten season. But did you grow up an IU basketball fan, Mark?
Well, when I was really young, I was huge Purdue because of Rick Mount.
Sure, yes.
And I love those teams. Rick Mount, Billy Keller, and Herm Gilliam, and when he was healthy, big Chuck Davis in the middle, and George Faber before he was selling windows.
Yes, he was, and he does.
Larry Weatherford from Evansville coming off the bench. But, I love those Purdue teams. I think those are the greatest uniforms of all time, that era.
They were.
When they had the gold top and the black shorts. And Indiana, it just didn't seem like they were on TV as much when I was really young. And then when Coach Knight arrived, everything. I loved George McGinnis and Steve Downing and in high school. And so when they both decided to go to IU, I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that makes it really interesting for me. And even Dave Shepard, who I saw at Costco the other day, went there before he transferred to Ole Miss. It's like how many Mr. Basketballs do you see wandering Costco?
Well, I mean, how many Shepards do you see wandering Costco as well?
Yeah, well, there's
a lot. Yeah, a lot.
Yeah. But so then the IU kind of became interesting to me. And the only unfortunate part of that was we had a high school coach, and oh, by the way, this was virtually every high school coach in the late 70s thought he was Bob Knight.
No doubt about that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So while I enjoyed the IU teams, tremendously, and with what we ended up being able to do for a living, actually getting to know those guys. That was pretty special. But the downside was the high school coaching thing.
Yes. I I remember playing at the old University Middle School. I was playing an exhibition game, and Pat Knight was playing for Bloomington North at the time, and I think this was like late spring or early summer one year in the mid '80s, and the coach, whoever was coaching Pat, was just mild mannered, and just soft spoken at the beginning. And then Bob Knight walked in to watch Pat play, and things changed dramatically, like right there. Like, it was incredible, the change that all of a sudden he's stomping and yelling and screaming during just kind of an exhibition pickup type of thing. So you're right.
Well,
I mean, that happened most of the time.
The general came here today to watch me coach.
It was noticeable. Yeah, I definitely will say that. So Mark Patrick, who is the Broadcast Hall of Famer here, Indiana Broadcasting Hall of Famer on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I'm curious, before I let you go here, outside of Bob Knight and what we're talking about here, when is is this the anniversary of the Hoosier Lottery television show?
October 28th was, yeah.
Okay. What year was that, Mark?
Started in 1989. 89.
God dang. Man.
Mm-hmm. I had bangs.
You did have bangs.
Yeah,
and
I had bangs then.
You had a sweet-ass butt cut parted right down the middle, kind of like Steve Alford. Kind of.
Well, yeah. I mean, there were very few white men alive that weren't trying to have their hair like Steve Alford in the late 80s.
I did. I feathered it on the side all the time, combing the back pocket.
Remember that chart that was in Floyd's Barbershop in Mayberry?
Yeah, I do. Yes.
You go in a barbershop in Indiana in the late 80s, only had one, it just said Alford.
Well, yeah. I got my hair cut at Ward's Barbershop in Bloomington on Walnut Street. That was the only haircut that Ward could do, is the Alford right then.
Now,
the only
I
one.
recall your haircuts were $8.
Yes, and you know what?
$2 a side.
You made fun of me because I also I put blonde in my hair. I highlighted my hair back with you.
Yeah, you were frosting it. You were frosting it.
I was frosting back then. You had every right to make fun of me.
And so, you were getting on me because I always wore my headphones.
Yeah, on the side, yes.
The part that's supposed to go across the top, I had it in the back. And you go, why do you wear your headphones like that? I said, because I see all these guys that have their hair worn out there, and then I come back to Indiana and hey man, it's JMV. Look at this, I got new hair.
I think about that all the time. Seriously. You know how much I think about all the time about this stuff? It's incredible. But that is at the top of the list. The bald spot that can, take shape because your headphones sit on top of your head, the crown of your head.
You got so much wisdom during the commercial breaks that the world missed out on.
I did. I absolutely did. One of these days, you're going to have to come back on. We're going to have to rehash the Bill Poley and Jay Moore conversation. You know that, don't you?
Yeah, we're kind of coming up on the anniversary of that, aren't we?
Well, that was December of 01, was it not? Correct, I believe.
Was it December?
I think so.
Okay.
I always found my favorite part was this. Remember Dave McAnally at 13 framed it up on their broadcast as, then you were taken off the air because our friend Ron came in with me and we hosted the rest of the show, and Peyton Manning called in. Peyton Manning, called in and said, hey, I was just driving around. And I thought I'd call in. Okay. But you were actually going to watch Drew play basketball.
Yeah, he had a junior high basketball game, and I had it in my contract that if he had a game, I could go. So I did like the first hour or two, and that whole thing happened. And so then I left, and so It really did. And, part of the intrigue was that we were the Colts station at the time.
Yes.
So that made it really awkward because we knew that was a powder keg, and they were demanding that, that nothing was replayed and that they wanted the copy of the interview and that they wanted the only copy, and it was pretty crazy. So
Marty Bender confiscated that, and I don't think I ever saw a copy of that again. True story. Yeah, I don't think I ever saw it again. But Mike Chappell taped it sitting at home, and he has a copy of it as well. The best story about this, Mark, in closing, and this is regarding Jay Moore and Bill Pulley in the greatest radio segment in the history of Indianapolis that happened back in December of 2001 on WNDE with Mark as the host of Mark Patrick on Sports. Craig Kelly told me this, and Tom Telesco, who's the general manager of the Chargers, backed it up. He said that Craig, who was the media guru, was trying to hang the phone up when Bill and Jay were shouting at one another, and Bill was fighting him off with his forearm and wouldn't let him hang it up.
Yeah, Craig told me that.
I asked Tom Telesco that, and he said, yeah. He said, I was in there as an intern, and I could not believe what was going on.
Okay, here's a weird follow-up.
Mm-hmm.
So Polian spoke to me after that, but our relationship was never the same.
Right.
But he was polite but contrite. Very short, and I never went out of my way to speak with him after that either because I didn't. He was pretty volatile.
Yes.
So Drew gets drafted out of Stanford, 10th pick overall, signs a contract the next day, starts in the minors, and then is in the big leagues within, I think he spent 4 months in the minors. So he's making the day he signed. This is the day he signed. So before he had even played, he signs his contract, and then he's gonna throw out the first pitch and be introduced at National Stadium. So we're standing there in batting practice, and I'm behind the batting cage, and I look over at the guy next to me, and it's Bill Polian. And it's like, this is way out of place. It's like we don't see each other for 5 or 6 years, and then we're standing behind a batting cage in National Stadium. And he goes, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, what are you doing here?" And he was just there because his daughter actually lived in Virginia, I think, and so he had brought his grandson to the game. They were playing the Dusty Baker-led Reds at the time, and so he was like, he did not realize that Drew was my son, so that was kind of cool. So after that we were really good. So.
Well, you didn't walk down the forbidden hallway to talk to special teams coach Kevin Spencer like you did that one time. Remember when we all got yelled at for that? So, yeah.
Ooh. Yeah, I just say hi to a guy because I know him, right? He's like, hey,
it was a forbidden hallway, Mark. The forbidden hallway.
Come here. I want to ask you a couple of questions. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, hey, it's great talking with you. Let's do it again soon. I talk with Drew all the time, and his whiskey obviously is killing it right now. But thanks for adding to the show today. So much is obviously your content of the past with Bob Knight, Mark, and we'll stay in touch. Get you back on here again soon and talk about some stuff. I appreciate you.
Well, I hope this doesn't sound too patriarchal, but I've been immensely proud of what you've accomplished through the years and where you are in the landscape, because it's a very, very tough landscape. So
yeah,
Thank you, buddy. And you're sitting on top of it. I'm proud of it.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, JMV. See you.
All right. That's Mark Patrick out there. That's awesome. That makes me want to cry right there. It does. Quick break. We'll come back. Coach's Tavern downtown, and we'll talk to Ryan Carr next.
And 5, The Fan.
Yeah, I didn't expect that. That got me a little bit misty right there. Thank you, Mark Patrick. That was awesome. I could have done that for a couple of more hours. Coulda. Brent Holverson, betting analyst, JMV, Coach's Tavern downtown, Larceny Bourbon Locks, Lunazul Tequila Shots, Week 9, and reflection on the life and certainly the impact of Bob Knight here in Indiana with his passing yesterday at the age of 83. Hey, James, is Ryan ready? Hey, joining us now via the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. He's been a longtime friend of mine. I've always appreciated his friendship. He is the, I think, the vice president of player personnel. I always get his title wrong. But the friendship is right there with Ryan Carr of the Pacers. Hello, Ryan. How are you? Did I get that right?
Yeah, you did, John. I appreciate it. But the title is not that overly important.
Well, I want to make sure I get it accurate. First of all, thank you for coming on here today. Your story regarding Bob Knight and his impact on you, I think, is different than absolutely anybody else because you didn't grow up around here. I mean, I've talked about growing up around here and the effect that he had on me and families and my intro to sports and loving basketball. You, however, weren't from around here, but you thought when you saw Bob Knight and IU that you wanted to go to college and you wanted to be a manager for him. How did all that start?
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, I'm going to try to give you better. This morning I did an interview with Ryan, and I was a blubbering fool. So I'm going to try to do better this morning, but it's certainly emotional. So I grew up loving basketball. I just like probably any kid in Indiana did, but I was in Seattle, and I knew that I wanted to be a coach. And so I had read in A Season on the Brink There's a snippet in that book that describes what managers do and what how they could go on to be coaches and everything. And I was pretty enamored with that. So I wrote letters out to a bunch of coaches around the country. I would guess 30 letters. That's what I kind of always say. And the only guy that wrote me back was Bob Knight. And it wasn't any kind of promise or anything. It was probably a form letter. But imagine this. And if you don't believe in divine providence, I do, and this is one reason why. So I know you know exactly where you were during the 1992 Final Four. When they got cheated.
Yes.
Yeah, when they got cheated and lost to Duke, right?
Yes. Ted Valentine, baby. And then Todd, hey, it's the reason why I love Todd Leary still to this day. Yes.
He didn't quit. There's no doubt about that. He did not quit that game. So 2 weeks from that loss, Bob Knight is traveling through Seattle on his way to a fishing trip, I believe in Alaska, which is not unusual. But Baden basketballs, who coach endorsed, and we use their balls at IU. He was coming through to have dinner with Ed Schindler, who was the president of that company. Ed Schindler I had never met, but he was the grandfather of a friend of mine who played ball at my high school. Ed Schindler heard I wanted to be a basketball coach and took the initiative to talk to Coach Knight about me coming to Indiana. At a dinner 2 weeks after that Final Four, Coach Knight, in probably the smallest decision he ever made, told Ed Schindler that Ryan Carr could come and be a manager at Indiana University. I mean, and that one little decision at a dinner at some restaurant in Seattle changed the course of my life, because not only did I come here and get to be a part of that for 4 years, who would have ever thought that Pat would end up being one of my very best friends, that Nancy would end up being like a second mother to me in college, that I would get done with IU and end up being hired to do video for Larry Bird when he started coaching the Pacers. It's so unbelievable, John, and it's so just at the core of who I am. I can't even really grab words in what that one decision did for me and my future family. And it has nothing to do with money or anything like that, but it put me, I mean, I just loved hoops, man. Like, I could have grown up in Greene County and I would have still sucked, but I would have fit in. And it was, it's so like, I just listened to Mark tell you how proud he is of you. Imagine that over the past 6 or 7 years, as I've gotten to spend a little bit more time with Coach, and he was retired, and have some different kind of conversations, he says those kinds of things. I'm really proud of you. Man, it really means a lot how you treat Pat as he works for you. Like those kinds of things are, you can't buy that stuff. You can't
no.
So I don't even know where to go with that other than, oh my word, like, it's just an amazing thing. And every single day of my life, to be a part of all this, to be trading text messages and calls with heroes and people I look up to, and yet I'm included in, it makes no sense to me.
Hey, Ryan, it's as you mentioned, worth more than money. It's worth more than compensation. I mean, it really is that somebody, and you mentioned what Mark just said to me, made me incredibly misty, because it's been 19 years, and that part's amazing, and your relationship with Bob Knight is equally amazing. And you know what? It's unfortunate that sometimes we truly don't get to the root of how much this means to us until something like this. And I tried to explain this, Ryan, from a standpoint of a fan. I grew up as a fan. I didn't really ever covering other than the fact when he got fired, I was covering that back in 2000. I was just a fan. I grew up a fan, and I knew how much it meant to my family, my grandparents. Is always a point of emphasis around my grandparents' house to watch a game, to watch the Bob Knight show on every Sunday, and how many good times it was for us. And those are the memories beyond basketball that I have. And those, to me, as you mentioned, they're beyond money. It's priceless, those memories.
Yeah, I mean, just for me, it was impossible for me to know what I was being welcomed into. To come to Bloomington in the fall of 1992 was indescribable. How popular he was, how just all that these guests have talked about today, about how every high school coach was wearing the sweater and trying to run the motion offense and wouldn't play zone, and all that stuff is real. To my kids, and when I try to explain to them what it was that I was fortunate to be a part of and walk into, there's nothing that you can equate it to. There's just not. And I agree with like what you and Brian were talking about, that I don't see something coming that would even come close to rivaling what that was. To walk out of Assembly Hall, to get on a bus to go to the airport, and to have thousands of people just to see you off to go to the airport to play in a game, like that, it was larger. It was way larger than life. And he did that. Like, I mean, he was one of a kind. And I was talking to Brian about just kind of the emotion of dealing with all this. But it makes sense, because everything that Coach did was over 100%, whether it was, going to class, whether it was what the guys were doing, the players. And I'm the first to say, I say to everyone, including all the players that I know, that I would never, ever put my experience on par with theirs. But the coolness about this group of people is they're like, no way, man. Like, you guys, you managers went through all the same stuff. You were right there with us. Like, we needed you, and you needed us. Like, it's such a cool thing, but it was always at, like, an extreme level. So one of the first things you do as a manager, as a freshman, right, you get no good at jobs. One of the first things is vacuum in the locker room. The locker room was carpet, and I remember the first time doing it, asking one of the senior managers, hey, do I need to make sure the line's going in a certain way, like all straight a certain way? And it's just a feel. You walked into this environment where only your absolute best was expected. And I would say that any of the guys that went through this in any way, shape, or form would tell you, once they got out of there and realized in the real world, you can make a mistake and you can, get better from it, and there is a little bit of grace here and there. It's one of the biggest advantages all of us have had in life, and I mean, it's not even close.
So, again, Ryan Carr is the VP of Player Personnel for the Pacers. One time, he was a manager for the Hoosiers and Bob Knight back in the day on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I did want to ask you this, because I know you guys are tight, and I know Pat works within the organization scouting. How's Pat doing?
He's doing fine. I got a chance to spend a little time with him this morning, which was good. He's overwhelmed with just the outpouring. It's so cool to just see people reach out to him and make sure he's doing okay. And Pat, I mean, I know I'm his friend, and we've been close friends for a long time. I'm so proud of him for the way he has gone through this and supported Karen and Coach, over these past several months. It has been a very tough road. I know that I asked him, I was like, is there anything you would like me to say? And he said that wanted to make sure, like, thankful for just the healthcare workers that do this day in and day out with people, particularly Alzheimer's patients that, really struggle. He's in awe of what they do and how they do it. And he really, his main thing was to say, thank you for the people that are trying to work on eliminating this disease.
Man, I want to thank you for coming on today. You've been a longtime friend of mine, and it's funny, we kind of grew up with the same thoughts in mind. We didn't know one another. Didn't know one another when you were at IU, but we've grown up with the same thoughts in mind. And thanks for sharing all that today. And please, if you give a chance, give Pat our best. Would you please?
I will.
Ryan?
I will. Just one last thing. Two last things, if you have a minute. One,
I do.
One is one of the coolest things, and I feel like I'm in a unique place to say this. And I don't want to speak for either man, but being one of the very only people that ever worked for Coach Knight and Larry Bird, and I think they both have set the record straight on kind of that whole thing. But one of the coolest things was to be able to hear the absolute respect and admiration that they had for one another was very cool. And so I just think that was a really cool, unique thing. And then number two, if you guys want, if anybody out there wants to contribute or wonder what they can do, go to bobknight.com, and there's a link on there. One's the Alzheimer's Association, and then Steve Downing was nice enough to start a deal at Marion University in Coach Knight's name. Those are the two things that Pat and the family would love to help, and if people are inclined to do that in Coach's memory, bobknight.com, and there's also some really cool bobbleheads, one of him throwing a chair and some different stuff, and Pat has some really amazing plans for that I hope that in the future when everybody hears, I think it'll be super, super cool if it can all come to fruition, and just a great way to honor Coach and help battle this disease.
Hey, man, thanks for being a good friend and coming on here today. I appreciate that more than you know. I know that this has a great deal of impact to you, and certainly we understand that by your words. And if you guys need anything from me, you let me know.
Yeah.
Ryan, I appreciate you more than you know. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm blessed to somehow find myself in the middle of amazing people and just want to be a great friend and serve them well. So, likewise, JMV. Love what you do.
You're a great dude, my brother. I appreciate you. Always. Thank you, man.
Okay. Talk to you soon.
Pacers VP of Player Personnel, Ryan Carr, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Wow. There's a lot right there to get to. We'll come back. Brent Holverson rejoins us. The Harris Hoosier Park Race of the Day coming up as well. We're back after this.
on The Fan. The Ride with JMV, 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Coach's Tavern, we're downtown. Thank you for joining us to the Harris Hoosier Park race of the day today. And the winner is Aaron Pitts, the winning horse, Renegade Gypsy. The $2 bet paid at $3, I believe. The $2 exact to payout was $12.40, and the 50-cent trifecta $14.60. Harris Hoosier Park race of the day. Aaron, way to go! And you can find us here every week right near Harris Hoosier Park race of the day, and of course, Harris Hoosier Park has racing going on until a couple of weeks into December. I want to thank you guys for just a fantastic day of reflection and a fantastic day. I'll be honest with you, Brent Holverson rejoins us from Heaven Hill Distillery, our betting analyst. With what Mark said, just absolutely floored me. So I was pretty much floored in talking to Ryan Carr. Ryan Carr was so great in talking why he decided to come to Bloomington, and he wanted to be with Bob Knight as a manager, and what he has done right now is just incredible. There are days to where, obviously it's a sad day. It's a compelling day. But you think back on, this is one of these days we're going to remember forever right here.
Really is, John. And, what the cool thing is people come together. Friends come together.
They do.
To pick you up when you're down, right? We're all feeling the loss. And again, I got chills hearing Mark Patrick talk, man. And
wow.
It's a big hats off to you, my friend. I mean, it's we hate that we go so long without talking, but when you do get the chance, regardless of circumstances, it's always great to especially to hear a mentor, right? He's your mentor, man. He said some great, powerful words, and they're all true, man. They're all true. I'm honored to be sitting next to you, my friend.
Man.
And hey, we get to do this again. We get to do this again next Thursday. We're going to be at Joe's Grill in Westfield.
I love it.
So we haven't been up there for a while. So we'll get up to the Westfield. I know that's about a 4-hour drive for you. So
is our girl Allison going to be back next week?
I believe Allison might be joining us. I know she wanted to get on, and then she was going to do some picks possibly today. And we just had the full day, right? A lot of stuff. A lot of like you said, a lot of good remembering of the general. A lot of good people on air today, too.
Man.
That was what a show. From Brian Evans all the way. I mean, that was
It did start with Brian Evans. He got all emotional at the beginning, too. That was great.
Think about it. How tough is that, though, right?
Yeah.
This is somebody that, especially for a guy like Brian Evans. Again, I didn't play for Bob Knight for 5 years. I played for him for 4 years for a week at a time. Bob Knight, not the same, but I
could have played for 5 minutes. I'd have cried.
I think I did get an earful once, and I was like, oh, shit, I don't know if I can do this or not. But no, wait, again, though, you're right. We'll remember this day for a long time. There's not many people like Coach Bob Knight, the general. There's a general for the reason. And hey, we'll remember the positives. And, again, friends lift friends up.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate you as always. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tommy S., Tom Sutton here at Coach's Tavern. Great weekend going to be had right here at Coach's Tavern downtown. I want to thank all of you because you're the reason why we do this every day, and you're the reason why that we can get emotional and things like this, or even things that don't necessarily represent what happened. This is what we look for in terms of a show and how we are on a day-to-day basis with one another. I'm telling you, thank you so much for being a part of this show today. It was very special to me. Hopefully it was very special to you. Win Schuler Spreadable Cheeses inside the lounge via YouTube Live, the sponsor. That is Win Schuler Spreadable Cheeses. Original sharp bacon and cheddar and pepper jack. Kroger and Meyer locations you can find it. Sweeping Central Indiana, Win Schuler Spreadable Cheeses. Yep, Brian Evans, thank you very much. Dusty May, the head coach of Florida Atlantic. Mark Patrick, incredible, thank you. Ryan Carr, the Pacers, thank you very much. Tommy S. and Brent Holverson, awesome. Thank you very much, my brother. Devin James, tomorrow, Bud Light Blue Friday, GG's, 71st, Bedford Boulevard. I'll see you there with Colts tickets. Have a great night. Thank you.